Welcome to the LUTETIA Lounge. Produced by Studio Whacked.
I never smoked another cigarette after that. It was like
once bitten,
like
twice
it was like Colonel Kurt's statement in Apocalypse Now, where he shot through the diamond bullet, shot through his eye, his third eye, his realization that like of the absolute insanity of war. It was like I came to the full-on epiphany realization.
How old were you at that point?
About 25, 24, something like that. And I was like, fuck this shit. And she goes, yeah, you go out like a puss. This woman told me, she goes, it's a whimper when you go out like this. I was like, fuck. You scared the shit out of me.
Did she say how much he smoked?
She didn't know. She didn't know, but he said he was a Midwest boy, a cowboy, grew up smoking.
Probably two and a half.
He said that he used to be a cowboy in a rodeo, and she said, oh, back where he's from, Marlboro sponsored the rodeo.
Yeah,
they give you free cigarettes.
Well, you know that the Marlboro man died of lung cancer.
Yeah,
right?
sure. There was a handsome man, super handsome. She said when she goes, my dad was a doctor, but because he was black, he was forced to work as a nurse a lot of times, But her dad was a doctor, and she said that he smoked in the office with his patients.
Well, back then it wasn't seen as.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was actually encouraged to be like
there was
healthier.
a cigarette that was for asthma, because when you smoke a cigarette
that was with marijuana.
With marijuana in it,
yeah.
Correct. It actually engulfs the lungs with blood and expands the bronchial tubes for a minute or two, and it will save you from an asthma attack.
I believe those are called left-handed cigarettes.
I don't know if they're left-handed, but I remember a brand
that's
called
what
Ovo.
a cigarette is. That a marijuana.
Like left hand.
Yeah, a left-handed cigarette. So being
Funny
sinister.
It's left hand is always the bad guy,
Well, it comes from Italian, right? Sinister, and then now sinestre, and then you have sinister from that, right?
Well, I'm left-handed. I've followed my whole life. There's insidious.
You're a deviant. Did you know that left-handed people die younger?
Die young.
Yeah.
And stay pretty.
It's actually past your time to die young.
No, I'm 60-something now, motherfucker.
You're in your right mind, but you die younger.
Mm-hmm.
And are you the only one in the family that's left-handed?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
And was mom or dad left-handed?
I think so. No. Mom and dad, none of them are left-handed. I'm the only left-handed. I don't know what the deal is, but it's a pain in the ass sometimes.
Sedo, or is it rerunning?
Yeah.
Oh, we are?
We are.
Okay, cool. Let me just get one last thing.
I'm just sitting. I'm not running anywhere.
Run in your mouth. Right?
Tell him you're dead and gone away. Say his name again. Sided?
No, his name's Cedric, but we call him Cedric.
Cedric. Oh, because I have never heard that slang before.
So you're this. Well, actually, I want to say thanks for coming on today. I know it's been long and a hard process to finally wrestle you down.
Well, I'm kind of rebuilding myself a little bit. I've been here for 8 years in France, and that COVID thing really fucked me up.
You mean the actual sickness, or just the whole event itself?
I actually skated on COVID. I got it twice, never really had a problem. Got stabbed twice, and got it twice. And for me, it was just like 1 or 2 days, a little sweaty, and I was out of it and over it. No, but just the time down and a lot of the enterprises and ideas that I had a group of people really, I wouldn't say like one step away, but very close to the ramping up portion of opening a lifestyle store here. Nixon was still in the Marais. Nixon Watches was still in the Marais. There was a few things going on. There wasn't a real surf shop presence, and Sarah had closed Colette. And I thought, let's do something Colette-ish. In fact, we know a lot of their friends. We know them very well. And I was thinking I would steal some of her ex-staff and, create something kind of interesting. But then that COVID came in and just shut us all down, So
were you going to open that with somebody else?
Yeah, I had a couple of investors. I had some friends, but I also have a lot of friends that had stuff that would say, yeah, you want to curate some of my stuff in your space. I mean, if everyone from a Damon Way or a Tom Sachs to a Mark Gonzalez or you could any of those guys or Sean Stussy, you could approach any of those guys and say, hey, I've got a store, give me one of your collectible surfboards or something. You get enough friends like that together and
so
you
you're
have
trying to
some
sell
really
signature?
neat stuff. I wanted to sell emerging brands.
Okay.
Basically, because there's been kind of a flat spot in the way that emerging brands from around the world come and show the European market. There used to be trade shows that they used to do, but they kind of went the way of the dodo. So I wanted to do like a hybrid store that twice a year converted into a showroom. So the brands that I actually sold would be merchandised in the showroom, and then twice a year I'd wholesale them for the brands. And since they're emerging brands, they don't have distribution deals or anything. So if I build them up, I can take the distribution deal, or if they get too big, I can pass them off, to a syndication with somebody bigger and better than me, and
And tax them a little bit and make passive income?
Well, I mean, it's all about doing it well and with that spirit of aloha. We don't kind of get that anymore, but you can do a lot of things well, make a good amount of money, promote a brand, and have enough for them and you. Everyone can get paid well. Kind of what that utopian business model used to look like. It's still quite attainable.
Which one was that?
Well, I mean, just back in the 40s and 50s, where everybody worked for a company and their devotion got them benefits and stock, and it seemed like like kind of George Jetson kind of
you mean like
Star Trek version of it.
What you put in, you
yeah,
sort of
like
reap the
everyone is
benefits
taking
from
care
that?
of. There's a lot of companies now doing that again. There like a
Well,
lot
in
of
South America,
of surf brands. No, a lot of
Brazil,
like
maybe.
emerging brands, like the guys Wild Type. I heard have an incredible employee package, and people get to be partners and owners if they want, and they're growing cultivated biotechnological salmon. Even looks like salmon, but it grows on a string in the ocean, not the horrible salmon nets that they have in Nova Scotia or whatever, where they're farming salmon in open water, covered in lesions. This is actually the meat, the true biotech salmon meat, growing on a string in the ocean.
That's pretty.
It looks like salmon too.
wild.
Stray ate it. It's insane. So people that do cool stuff like that, I wanted to do that in the form of something cool and lifestyle driven, but with the authority on the spot. So you have skate authority, you have surf authority, you have snow authority, you have brands, you have this emerging kind of tactile coolness that all this direct consumer shopping online kind of misses out on. And kind of like what we did when we started the first Blood Surf in New York. That was me and Tom Sachs and Mary Fry and Mary's team and Tom's team. We kind of created a hybrid apartment, surf shop, luxury surf environment. And it was part of it was like a showroom, and the other part was actually a condensed apartment. Like the Japanese invented the Con-app. It was like a Con-app. So you could actually go in there and meet Jonathan Paskowitz, and he lived there, and he preached the gospel of surfing. It was a great idea. It worked for a while.
That's a good line to go back to the beginning, because a lot of people don't know Jonathan Paskowitz. Although there are a lot of people that do, but let's just rewind for a second and bring him up to speed.
You mean Jonathan Paskowitz, the son of Dr. Dorian Paskowitz, or Jonathan Paskowitz?
Before we get into your
guy?
future endeavors and the ones you're on now, I just want to talk a little bit about how you and your siblings were raised and what went on there.
Well,
I mean, start her off wherever you want.
okay. Well, I mean, just to blaze through so that
Go
like the
for it.
logorrhea kind of doesn't bore whoever's listening.
Watch the movie Surf Wise. You get caught up.
Yeah,
that you
can watch
produced,
the
by the
movies.
way.
I did produce Surf
That's
Wise.
right.
Yeah. So my dad basically was a nebbish little Jewish boy that was born in Galveston, Texas. His parents immigrated just before all of the shenanigans of the 40s, that got him in trouble with all the stuff over there with the war. And he was the son of a haberdasher, a guy that made clothes for men in Galveston, Texas. And I don't know where he saw it. I think it was Life magazine. He saw something about surf riding and was obsessed the moment he saw it. Changed
How old
his
was he?
life. I'm going to say in his 11 teen, 12 teen,
And your father was born in the 20s?
late 20s or early 30s. So he saw that. He said, I'm going to surf. Long story short, he made his way to San Diego. Even though he was asthmatic and kind of not very physically fit, he converted himself from that little, guy to the most muscular Adonis of the surf you've ever seen. Pictures of him when he was a lifeguard in San Diego are mind-boggling. He's doing like handstand push-ups on a pull-up bar. I mean, he was truly a magnificent specimen. And he got married and divorced a couple times because his love of surfing kind of deviated from what a good Jewish doctor should be doing. And at that time, having graduated from Stanford University, everybody wanted him to go after the money. And he sat in on a lecture that the president's wife, at that time, I think Lyndon Baines Johnson, so it would have been Bird Johnson, had this meeting of doctors. And I think it might have been in Hawaii. And he was able to go to it. And she said, health is not just being not sick. And he met her afterwards and said, may I use your quote, your statement, and convert it to this statement that I'll tell you now. Health is more than the mere absence of illness. Health is a superior state of well-being. He said it just rolled off his tongue like that. And that was his manifesto for his life from that moment forward. So because health was more important than illness, he started a huge movement towards what the industry called back then preventative medicine, which ostracized him from his own people. All doctors hated him because all doctors just wanted to write a prescription, have sick people. He wanted people to not be sick. And so when he met my mom, he wanted to have a lot of kids and he wanted to live a bohemian life and he didn't want to get paid to be a doctor. So we gave away the doctor part.
And he'd already had 2 wives before meeting your mother?
Married and divorced twice.
Because he was sort of just surf crazy, dedicated most of his life
to that? In a way,
he
was a dedicated doctor, but also he wasn't sympathetic to their needs. And because he felt he was ignorant and had atrophied socially by being dedicated to surfing and not following this kind of dating and philosophical belief of romancing a girl and meeting them, he kind of became almost like a eunuch. He just surfed and did his meditation to become a doctor. After he spent 2 years in the Navy, paying back the federal government for his tuition to Stanford University, he got married and immediately got divorced, and then married and immediately divorced again. So I have 3 half sisters out there somewhere.
You've never met them?
No, I have a few. Debbie Mogelberg makes wine in Chile. She's absolutely the cutest thing you've ever seen. Her and her wife live in Chile and they make wine, and she's Fox. Can you say Fox still?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, Fox. She's Foxy. And so my dad took my mom, met her in Catalina, and she was everything he had never seen before. She was a big, tall, ethnic, Native American, Mexican, Indian woman, and he just fell madly in love with her and had 9 kids. And the process was...
How old was he at that point? Like in his late 20s,
I'm going to say
early
he
30s?
was in his early 30s, yeah.
And he's living in California at
He
that time?
went out to Catalina. He was a doctor. Yeah, he was living in California.
When he's doing all the surfing and everything like that, neglecting his wives, he's in Southern California? Or
He's in Hawaii.
He's in Hawaii.
He's in Hawaii.
Okay, well.
But he came back here a lot. He lived in San Francisco at one point. His wife wanted to open an art gallery, his second wife, Elizabeth Mogelberg. It was a weird kind of tempestuous time for him. But once he met my mom, he kind of went feral. He went feral. Like there's a period where David, Jonathan, Abraham are born, and he just drove his car out into infinity on a point in Cabo San Lucas and just lived off the fat of the land for 6 or 8 months until the federal government came with my mom's brothers and just said, hey, are you insane? His wife had 3 kids and pregnant with a 4th, and he was like living like
hunting and fishing?
Yeah. Like stranded, like that movie where the guy takes the volleyball and turns it into a person. It was
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yeah. It was like stranded. It was crazy. And then
the federal government came to say,
the Mexicans, they were worried about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because can you imagine a gringo with a half-naked woman on the point? Like, ay, pobrecita, people worried about her, But so we moved back to California and we got a camper, and we basically drove around the United States helping people that needed a doctor.
And you say they were in Mexico because your mother was born and raised there?
No, my mom was born in Long Beach, California.
Oh, okay.
Her family was. Her dad was from the Yucatan Peninsula and her mom was from Durango. And they were very, very old school Latinos, Mexican Latinos.
And what people does she herald from?
Her father's blood is old Spanish and Native American, indigenous North American. And her mother's blood is the very interesting group of people that were in the Yucatan, the Chichimecas, who believe they can communicate through a hairless dog to the dark world. Have you ever seen those people?
Are you making this up as you go
No, they
along?
have this clairvoyancy that goes through this dog that's kind of a shiny gray dog. No, it's true. It's a shiny gray dog, no hair. And I guess it passes between this world and the afterworld. And they use it to carry notes back and forth to your late
emissary of sorts.
I guess it could be a female dog, but I mean, yeah, it's interesting. But they're native Indians of that era, of that area. And it was kind of neat because growing up, my mom's family were super Mexican, and I just loved that. I love everything about the Mexican people and the food and
they were living in Long Beach though.
Her mom and dad died pretty soon, but she had a big family and they all lived in California at some point. So we were very familiar with them. They were friends of ours, and we spent a lot of time. But also we spent a lot of time in Mexico. Whenever we could go to Mexico, living in California, you can drive to Cabo.
Yeah,
you could drive to down the peninsula, and then also it's very inexpensive to get to like Acapulco or Zihuatanejo or Saladita or any of those kind of local, not so far down Mexico.
And of course, your dad wanted to go there.
Of course, it's fun. I mean, he lived in Acapulco at this area with my mom and my brother Joshua for some years, and just the amount of good that he did was amazing. I mean, can you imagine a Stanford doctor just in his camper parked on the near the tarmac of the private airport, and you could just come up to him and say, "Hey, look, doc, I cut myself on the engine of my car, and I need stitches." That poor guy, his life was saved by my dad just stitching him up, and he did that all day long. And once in a while, someone would give him a chicken or something, but he'd never take money. Some people gave him money for materials, to pay for drugs and materials, but he did it all for free.
And then how was he? Did he have money from before they stocked away?
He was poor as a pauper. My whole life, my dad never kept the money that he was given. He gave it away. At one point, our Auntie Mimi willed him a little bit of money. And when I say a little bit, I mean like 40 or 50,000. And he gave it to some needy person or family member because he said, "Oh, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm so happy dirt poor driving around in a camper with my family." And I was like, when we found out about it, the kids were pissed.
He didn't want to upgrade the camper?
He didn't take us to like a hamburger dinner or anything. No, he never did anything like that. We became masters of this, what you call today van life. You should see what we were capable of. We tapped into resources wherever we went. We were gypsies in that kind of like Irish traveler way, but we weren't criminals, but we would like.
Well, it sounds like your father was such a benevolent man. He couldn't be a criminal. He was giving away money.
He would never. And he found money on the ground one time with me when we were walking on the street in New York. It was like a $20 bill. And I would look, a $20 bill.
This is in the 70s or something?
This was in the 70s probably. Yeah, it was like early 70s.
Like a $100 bill now.
It was a $20 bill. And I looked down like $20 bill. I picked up $20. And first thing he said was, think of the person who lost that. How bummed they must be, if they really needed it. Like it was like that was their last one. And I was like, "Oh God, Dad, you're really bumming me out." I said, "Here, give it away. Go ahead." I gave it to him. The first guy we came up on, who was like Vietnam veteran, and he had like his prosthetic off, so you could see his hobbled, withered, amputated leg. And my dad handed him the 20, and he goes, "Bless you, sir. Bless you." And I was like. But I never faulted him for his generosity.
How could you?
It was what he was. You can't change a tiger stripes, bro. Yeah. He was, I don't know what it was in him. He just, something triggered. My brother says one time he was talking to him, he just said it was when he gave his Hippocratic oath to like do no harm, to be a doctor, something snapped in him. He just was like, okay, and my job is now to help people.
Was his family like that?
No, hell no. His sister was an actress for a while. Then she married some rich guy who took her away from that horrible occupation. She actually did a couple of movies with Humphrey Bogart. You can Google her, Sonia Paskowitz. His brother was a violin player and teacher. They were nothing like my dad, nothing whatsoever. My dad was a total rebel, but he wasn't like a Bukowski kind of rebel. He wasn't kind of a hippie. He wasn't.
Well, he sounds like he was a
had his
hippie
own-
without the drugs. I mean, went back to the land. He started
kind of.
didn't care about money.
Yeah, he took care of people and all that. I mean, later, as we got older, I think a lot of Salvador and my sister both kind of resented him for not letting them go to school. And I can understand that.
What you mean going to school? Like what school?
Regular school. None of us ever went to school.
You're a homeschool.
Anyway, well, we said that, but I mean, we just read and recited things and stuff like that.
You seem like a pretty eloquent and
I spent a lot of time
person.
trying to. I read a lot, and we did a lot of recital. One person would read something, and then once they kind of had a good handle on it, then we would ask for them to, like an orator, to expound on what they had learned. And it could be anything. It could be why the sky is blue, about refracting and reflecting light, or it could be a poem, I mean, my brothers did a bunch of weird poems. I mean, I loved Edgar Allan Poe. I loved Lewis Carroll, Jabberwock, things like that, and you'd act them out in the camper. 'Twas brillig in the slithely toves, did gyre and gimble in the wabe, how mimsy were the Borgos and Monrath so grave. And then we'd play it out for them, our Raven,
But you don't feel that you suffered or sort of.
Yeah, we suffered. It was all about suffering, but the benefits were.
No, but I mean, in the sense
amazing.
that you didn't have a traditional education, which I think would be quite awesome, actually.
It was awesome in the times it was awesome. And then it's, of course, frightening when you're in a group of people who are strategically the absolute opposite of you, the antithesis of you. And they're talking about things that you know nothing about, college and dorms and, just, it's crazy. My father didn't kind of embrace any of that, so we didn't understand any of that.
It sounds like he didn't want to conform, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
I mean, I feel like universities just pump out people that are the best at conforming and can pass that test, and they'll go into the workforce, and they'll be a middleman who says yes, or they'll actually work themselves up the ladder, and they can, perform for themselves, and then maybe hire some other peons that have conformed, and they've got that diploma from whichever college it is.
Right.
And I mean, I would think I'd wear that as a badge of honor for sure. I mean,
well, the thing is that, and I hear that now from more Gen Z guys, but sadly, when I end up,
I'm not Gen Z, by the way.
No, you're not.
I'm just like you, my friend.
I'm a boomer, I think.
That's why I was fine with.
Yeah.
You're
Am I not a
borderline
boomer?
X.
61?
61 might be the end of boomers. You're right.
Yeah, I'm an
Your other siblings are X's.
Yeah.
Generation X.
So when I talk to the Gen Z guys and the Alpha Beta guys, I kind of feel that
Alpha Beta. You're talking about Brave New World now?
Alpha and is the next one, right?
Oh, that's true.
There's kind of almost an entitlement that goes with them that sometimes I have a hard time with because.
Elaborate.
Well, I mean, I've suffered a lot, and you can't, like my stepson Milo always says, you can't compare your life to my life because my life is so. It's been so planned for me, My mom had these plans. Her father, who helps with us, has these plans, and my life is kind of a path. I'm on a path. They want me to go to school. They want me to do this. That. He's on a mission.
Something that you didn't ever have to.
We didn't have any of that. I mean, really, I remember lying around saying to myself, I would love to be a doctor or a lawyer or something. And a kid with us, Joey Baran, said, I want to be a pro surfer. There was no pro surfers at that time. This was 63, 4 or 5. There was no such thing as a pro surfer. And I remember a guy with us at Makaha Point said, one day people will make like $1 million being pro surfers. And we laughed so hard. And then I remember in a blink of an eye, I was shaking Kelly Slater's hand and he was telling me, God, I like making $1 million here. I was like, holy mackerel.
I'll make more than that.
Oh, yeah.
With sponsors. And
I'm sure. Well, the surfing industry has atrophied tremendously. All the big brands have all kind of died off, gone the way of the dodo. Quicksilver, Billabong, Hurley, all those big brands have morphed into other things.
a lot of them been, I mean, even the skate brands have been sucked up by conglomerates.
Yeah, but the skaters are much more reactionary, and there's like that shark tooth example. One gets worn and breaks off, and there's another one behind it. Skaters are very proactive like that, and there's brands. Maybe DC got corporate and became Quicksilver, and then became something else. But now there's these other little Kuma or whatever that skate brand is, and these other little companies coming from like V7 France, and they're hardcore, real deal skaters.
Yeah, that's true.
Palace and these other ones, Supreme, have gone, mega giant.
Supreme sold many years ago.
Sure, but I mean, they were hardcore as hardcore could be. Shut Skates and Supreme and Zoo York and that whole thing, Union next to Stussy on Prince, that was a whole world. And it really was the provocative lifestyle of skateboarding that created the entire action sports industry, where we saw brands like Quicksilver achieve $1 billion worth of sales. That whole thing came about by the great triumvirate: surfing first, skateboarding, and snowboarding. And that really took care of a lot of people for a lot of years. And there was a lot of great people and a lot of great things going on. I mean, Jake Burton, for criminy sake, what a hero he was. What a mensch he was. Or so many of the skaters too. Steve Olson and Hackett and Hosoi and Caballero and Lance, and so many of them, superheroes. And you meet them in real life, you're like, wow, that's the coolest guy I ever met. I mean, Steve Olson, wow, what a superstar. He wasn't just a great skater, he was a great person. And same in the surfing world. You ever meet Kelly Slater, you'll walk away saying, God, that's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And, it's that kind of noble character came from what we were all raised with, that kind of shake a hand contract, good guy thing.
So you don't regret it then?
I don't.
No.
I
mean,
don't.
you could have all taken a GED at 16.
I did.
And you would have passed it with flying
I passed
colors.
the GED. And guess what? The thing that I used to pay it bounced. So even though I did my score passed it, they wouldn't give it to me because I paid them with there used to be a thing called checks back in the day.
I heard about them.
Yeah.
I bounced a few myself.
Yeah, Mickey Dora. Yeah. So when I was growing up, we all wanted to just stay in the water surfing, and that's when the gypsy traveling doctor meets our love of surfing kind of collided, and we became surfing instructors.
I mean, you're all surfing from like the time you can walk, or not even.
Yeah.
You just dad paddles you out.
Most of us could surf at like 2 or 3.
So dad paddles you out on a longboard?
Yeah, for
or
sure.
Or your brother, your sister?
Yeah. Well, if you get 3, 5, and 9-year-old on a giant surfboard, you go trandem,
And you're the second, right, in the family?
I'm number 2, yeah.
Number 2.
Yeah.
And there's 8 of you? Or?
Yeah, there's David, who's the oldest.
7 boys, 1 girl.
8 boys, 1 girl.
Oh, sorry.
So
9
David, Jonathan, Abraham, Israel, Moses, Adam, Salvador, Daniel, Nava, and Joshua. 9 of us.
And what's from David being the first and Joshua being the last? What's that? 15 years?
Something like that.
Something around there.
Yeah, something like that. Because there's like 4 of them in the middle that are like literally 10 months apart. But then
there's like Irish twins.
But then David and I were 2 years apart because I don't know why, but he was 59, I was 61, born in 1959. I was born in 1961.
Do you know everybody's birthday? I mean, that must.
No, God, no.
That'd be hard.
I don't even remember my mom or dad's. Well, no, my dad's March 3rd. I don't remember my mom's though. No, we went.
Mom's is still around.
You have to
right?
remember though, when we were mom and dad both passed away a while ago. Dad 5 or 6 years ago, I think, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and mom about 4 years ago. But when you were raised in the camper, you don't actually know what Monday or Tuesday is.
That's pretty cool.
You don't know what month you're in.
It's the endless summer. I mean, it's the dream.
It
really
truly is.
It's the dream. I mean, how could? But you said there's 2 siblings. Your sister
Nava and another brother,
Joshua? Salvador, Daniel,
They were the ones who kind of reproached your father at some point?
In a sense, they kind of were. I would say bitter is fair. That Abraham too, who really had an inclination to be a doctor and was very skilled assistant to my father.
So he did have. I mean, so your father did teach him.
Yeah, my father would put a guy on the hood of the car, and he was slashed open. We were all gathered around.
Where were you in Mexico near Zorro's house or something?
San Onofre, California. I remember one guy.
Oh, a Skaggs or something?
Whatever it was, yeah, of Skag, a Finn.
What? What's wrong with the Skag?
No, it's the old school way of saying Finn, I guess.
Right. Listen,
Nobody says Skag anymore.
Listen, I told you I was pretty much from your generation.
A Skag is a girl that.
No,
is like
that's
dirty.
a skank.
No, that's a modern term. I don't know what that is.
All right, I think you're.
I remember a great time. We had a student that somebody referred to my father. His name was Blah, and he was from Jamaica. And
his name was Blah, like
Blah,
like
Blah,
blah blah.
Blah. That was his name. His mom named him Blah, and just like French for flower, bleh. He was Blah, and he came and helped us during surf camp, and for some strange reason, a guy got slashed open by a Skag at San Onofre, and we threw him on the hood of the car. He needed like 20 stitches, 30 stitches, and he said, "Oh, I'll help you, Doc." And he was holding a flashlight because my dad needed to pick out pieces of resin and surfboard from his elbow, I think it was.
Like a piece of fiberglass in there?
Yeah, like shards. And he was picking them out, and I remember watching Blah starting to waver, and there's a bleeder, so it's squirting blood here and there, and he's trying to get it out, and it was funny. He fainted and hit himself in the head, and he needed stitches.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. and Abraham stepped in. And he was young. I'm gonna say Abraham was like 6 or 7, and he was an amazing nurse. He was like dabbing the brow. He was handing him the forceps. He was like, and my dad expeditiously got the stuff out of the guy, sewed the veins together, clamped off that bleeder, blah, blah, blah. I was just going, wow. I mean, my hands were shaking. It was pretty visceral. And Abram really had skills. And later on, he said, "I want to be a doctor." And I remember some years later, he went and did his GED and did all these things. And he was going to join this group that prepped him to be EMT, which led to going to college to be a doctor. And the counselor told him, forget about it. Maybe the counselor was just a bad person. I don't know.
Anybody who says forget about it.
He said, forget about it. He says, by the time you graduate, like you'll never make it you'll never become a doctor. He just basically shut him down. And it really bummed him out.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible.
I'm sure he could have pulled it off easily.
I mean, gosh, today you hear about people getting their degrees, in their 50s and 60s.
And you're saying, how old was he at that point, 15,
He was
16?
in his 20s.
He was in his 20s.
Yeah, he could have done it. But the whole calamity and fun of running the surf camp every summer at San Onofre led to this kind of perpetual or perennial series of escapades that just goes into it. It's this ad nauseum stories of sex, drugs, and surfing.
Wait, who's doing the drugs and who's doing?
Well, weed.
Oh no, but there was sex, there was drugs, and
yeah, weed. I mean, that was beer and weed or drugs.
Was your dad okay with weed?
No.
No, he wasn't okay with any drugs.
No.
Just adrenaline.
He considered sugar and salt a drug.
They are.
So we never had sugar in our home. Never. We were lucky if we had honey in our home. Like a normal breakfast would be my dad would go to a tack store tack stores that provide stuff for horses.
Animal feed.
Yeah. And there's some of these chews, these grains that are mixed for horses that he said are fine for humans. And they're very inexpensive compared to human food. And you get a 50-pound sack, and it has flaxseed, it has oats, steel cut whole oats, it has like bulgur, it has all this stuff in it.
Do you mix it up with milk?
And well, you have to clean it because there's twigs and branches and stuff in it. You have to clean it, and then you boil it like you would oatmeal or porridge. And it's an incredible breakfast. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but looking back, this whole wheat and mixed melange of nut in a boiled porridge for breakfast was amazing.
Didn't your father live to be like 93, 94 or something?
Yeah, I mean, he surfed in the 90s. He was surfing in the 90s. And he had gotten
into his 90s, not just
And then he had gotten a replacement hip, and he was in his 80s. So he was on board surfing, standing up, riding waves by himself, 93. And then 94 years old, he went to visit somebody in the hospital and came home with a cough. 3 weeks later, he was dead.
You know, there's always all kind of viruses floating around hospitals, aren't there?
Yeah, he hated hospitals. And he was slim, and so he didn't have a lot of body fat to help him through that little illness, and he succumbed to that. But it was a bummer because some people, my brother thinks it was like the beginning of COVID, because nobody knows what COVID really, where it came from and all that. So it's the conspiracy.
He died in 2019?
He died he died 2017, I think. Something like 18. But anyhow, he
was
he was crazy.
Paragon of health.
Yeah, he ran, he served, I remember he was 93, he was being interviewed by somebody, and he said, well, I mean, obviously you must be most proud that you're still out there surfing, because we saw you, before we came up for the interview, the interviewer says it to him, we saw you coming in on a wave. And he says, actually, I'm more proud that I'm still, and he said, fucking my wife than I am that I'm still surfing. And my mom's right there listening, just like turning red. But she was so used to it. She was so used to hearing that talk from him. And he really believed in sex. He loved sex, and he believed in sex, but not pornographic, prurient sex. He believed in romantic sex of that kind of like outer world, cosmic awareness sex, He believed that
that's what kept him young and robust, maybe?
Yeah, he really believed in love and affection, and he was always hugging and kissing my mom. They were very affectionate people, and it was inspiring, really. It was very inspirational. I mean, to see your parents love each other so much. Sadly, I have a lot of friends that tell me they've never seen their parents kiss, never seen their dad slap their mom's ass and say, "You're a hot number, mama," stuff like that. Never. I mean, I was coded in that.
If I remember from the movie, if I can just, didn't you guys say that your parents basically made love almost every night?
Yeah, in the camper.
And you were 11?
Now, yeah. Well, I mean, we were ranged in age, but I mean, you'd be in the camper and it would start rocking, and you knew what was going on. I mean, it was cool. It didn't bother me at all. It was kind of like.
Like you said,
soothing.
Your parents love each other, and they're
it was kind of soothing. I mean, it seemed natural. I mean, the Native Americans lived in teepees, and that all went down. I mean, humans all over the world live like that. Middle Easterners and people live in yurts, and the great steppe of Genghis and Kublai Khan. I mean, what do you think? Kublai asked his kids to leave before he mounted his wife?
Maybe his wife mounted him.
Well, I'm sure. A lot of these great men, they are great because they maybe not outwardly it was socially acceptable, but inwardly they were very respectful and very honorable relationships with their wives that they considered to be their equals.
So your
my dad always said, love and a real relationship isn't 50-50. It's 100%, 100%. I like that. It is 100%, 100%.
And your mother and father were married for over 60 years.
Yeah, they dug it. They dug it. They really, really loved each other. I remember at the funeral, my mom was crying so bad. She was like, "Oh, he had great balls." Like everybody says, like, "What the F word, lady? What are you?" It was so funny. We laughed so hard. She was an incredible comedian. My mom was so extremely funny. She invented the game of where you see two people at a distance, but you mimic what you think they're saying to each other, and you kind of like make the
charade
voice.
It out.
Yeah, you charade their voices and stuff. And she came up with the zaniest, wackiest stuff you've ever heard, and her voices were amazing. Like her voice characterization is abilities were amazing. But I mean, it was kind of in the family. Bugs Bunny was our cousin. Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny, was my father's sister's son or something like that.
Okay.
So it was in the blood.
And your mother, she was an assistant to your father, or was she doing her own thing?
Well, when they met, she was an operatic singer. She sang opera. She was a contralto, the lowest register of female voices.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she was with Beverly Sills and all those kind of ladies singing opera. She was like on her way to being a star. And she met my dad on the summer break from where she was doing a job for, I want to say Pac Bell. She was an actual dialing operator because you used to have to use jack lines and hubs in the old days. And I remember one time she actually played it out for us like, oh, hi, this is Lyceum 4759. May I help you? You know, and their pens have a little ball at the end so they can dial with their pen, you know, so you don't have to use your finger in the rotary. And we were like, holy mackerel, is that really how you did it? And she said, oh, yeah. You know, and it was just, I mean, it was very fairy tale romance how they got together. And
were they similar? Were they close in age?
My mom was about 11 years to the younger than my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was like 22 or 3 when you got married?
But I mean, she was incredibly beautiful. And my dad was, you know, he was buff and handsome. I mean, they definitely hit it off immediately. And all the way through our lives, especially at the surf camps, you know, we really got it. We really had the opportunity to just live very physical lives, you know, surf every day, all day, sleep like a rock, get up, you know, eat food, fish. I remember when we were surfing at one of the beginning surf camps, 1974-ish, I want to say. I was probably 12 or 13 around then, just before I went to Israel. And we were getting lobster and abalone just in a 3-minute paddle offshore. Just dive down, no mask, nothing.
Where was that?
Right off the beach in California, San Onofre, California, south
San
of
Onofre.
San Clemente, yeah. I remember it was Moses or one of my brothers could grab an abalone and pull it off the rock quickly without using a pry bar.
That's how strong it was.
Yeah, but also how scary is that?
Yeah.
If you ever put your fingers underneath an abalone and you feel that big muscle pull down, it feels like it can snap your tips of your fingers off. So if you grabbed it, you would have to pull fast and hard to pull it off a rock. You know, an abalone the size of, you know, a
rugby ball or something.
A football, yeah. I mean, they were big. It was wonderful. Living like that was like, I would say I was like Mowgli.
So then you guys would do the surf camps there, and you did
in the summer, July, August, and the first week or two of September.
There was some revenue coming from that.
When we did that, we got made money. We made money, but my dad,
would that carry on? Like, would that sort of be packed away for the rest of the year or something?
No, we would blow it all, and then we'd have to figure out something to do. But that once we got that point where we started doing that, after about, I don't know, maybe 10 years of doing that. When the boys started taking it over, we were taking hundreds of students. And back then, a week, all expenses paid, and they'd even get a surfboard, was like $1,500. And other camps were like $3,000.
Where would the surfboards come
We would make a board at Hobie's for them. A lot of the guys, we made surfboards for them. Well, it cost $300, $400 for a brand new surfboard. $300, something like that. And
do you guys have some collaboration going on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, we knew everybody in the surfing industry, and we grew up with everybody.
Well, your family's pretty much surfing royalty.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, we knew everybody in the surfing industry. I mean, that's for sure.
You wouldn't say your name is synonymous with surfing royalty, with the Fletchers and
well, I mean,
guys?
I work for the Fletchers, so I see them as kind of leaders of the surfing industry. Yeah, I would say my dad's legacy, I think, is that there is a great equality and leveling thing about surfing that does something to you, that helps you. And he always said that he wants to share that spirit of aloha and surfing with other people, because he felt it was the greatest medicine of life, was to have something that kept you fit, that balanced you spiritually and physically. He wasn't much of a spiritualist. He wasn't big on religions. He did some of the basic things of Judaism, like laying the phylacteries of the things you wrap on your body. They're called tefillin on a daily basis.
On a daily basis?
Yeah. But the reason he did that...
More for a ritual than anything else?
No, he did that because he felt that he had let his people down during the Holocaust. Because he was alive during that period, living in the United States, and he felt like he should have been a warrior and gone over there and fought for the Jews in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen and stuff like that.
12 or 13 years old? I mean,
yeah, he did. He felt like and a lot of the Jewish Americans felt that way. They knew what was going on, and they, despite whatever like nonsensical press and texts of the day is going on right now. It's hard to imagine millions of people simply being exterminated the way that went down. And when the news of what was actually happening got back to North American Jews, I mean, the horrors were immense. And my dad felt like something should have been done for him. He felt he should have done something. That's why later in his life he started taking surfboards to Israel in the late 50s and taught all the Israeli commandos how to surf, many of them like amputees and things like that. And also he started looking for Holocaust survivors that had been duped or ripped off or whatever and were living on the streets, because he came into contact with a guy that tuned him into the fact that a lot of Holocaust survivors, still with tattooed numbers on their arms, were living in the streets because even though they had gotten money from the government or somebody trying to take care of them, ne'er-do-wells like usurped them out of their
they couldn't cope with maybe everyday life.
Maybe. I mean, you have to imagine the PTSD was immense. Yeah. So we started doing that. So we also spent a lot of time teaching and going back and forth to Israel to try to teach people to surf.
The whole family?
Yeah. Well, at first we did 2 big family trips, but all of them were rife with trouble. Like there was war stuff going on. And I remember one time a giant military attack dog tore Salvador to shreds, like 500 stitches. Because he surprised this attack dog that was guarding a part of a facility. Yeah, it was horrible. And
he still has scars from that.
Oh, terrible! Yeah. And then I jumped in a tank and I ran it over some things by accident. Not totally by accident. I mean, I did it on purpose, but accidentally purpose.
Wait a second. You can speak up. What are you trying to say?
I crashed a tank. I got into this tank with this little Israeli girl, Ella, and she showed me how to start it, and I just started kind of like marauding the kibbutz we were in, and they had to like jump on the tank and drag me out of it, and they beat me with a stick, and it was like they were really mad.
And you were just getting in there to sort of
I thought
pet the girl?
I wanted to kiss and play with her in the tank.
And you ended up turning into a tank driver.
Yeah, it was a big mistake.
And hit a kibbutz?
Well, I ran over some little huts and things that they use for storing gardening stuff, and
Jesus.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I was really troublemaker, and whatever we did our experiences, and then later on, some years later, we had met over the years. We spent a lot of time. Again, not what you hear in the news today, but I grew up with a lot of Israeli and Arabic Muslim surfers in Israel, because even though there's a lot of like fake news going out there, Israel has millions of Muslims that live in. I mean, in this 1972, one of my first trips by myself there, I was 12 and a half or 13 years old. Everybody I hung out with was from Jaffa. They were all Arabic. They were all Muslim, and at a certain point, I think the modernization and a lot of this, like, kind of rudeness and crudeness came from this aggressive religious group in Israel that kind of gave birth to like the Netanyahu sets kind of mentality. We felt bad for our friends that were Palestinian that weren't getting boards in Gaza. So we started a thing called Surfing for Peace. And Kelly Slater came with us, and we got all these surfboards, because Kelly's father's actually Syrian. His late father was Syrian. So we've got Christians, Jews, and Arabs all together, and we got surfboards, and we really got surfing going in Palestine and in Gaza. Also, the wind.
What year is it? Circa.
Oh, I don't know. 2015 to 2013, 14.
Oh, so it's 10 years ago.
Yeah, and we really did an amazing thing, getting a lot of. I mean, we got hundreds of boards to them, and enlarged a community of consciousness by putting people in the water, and they were great guys. They were really great guys. I mean, not as many girls though, because of they're hobbled. Girls are by this religious extremism. Of Judaism and Muslimism. It really hobbles the girls. Mm-hmm. You're never going to see a girl in a bikini in Gaza surfing. They would stone her to death. So we figured out ways of like passing on boards and wetsuits and things to them, and it eventually became a big thing. And we created a nonprofit called Surfing for Peace. And then when it really came to a peak, we brought all the surfboards, Kelly Slater, everybody got all to, brought warlords up from Gaza. I mean, really, really dangerous guys, and got them all together surfing with these dangerous guys and Christians and Jews. And it was a huge success. I mean, it was amazing. And I really felt like we had accomplished something that day. It was really scary, but we got a lot of people
and did you guys
stoked.
Subsequently leave all those boards there?
Oh, yeah.
So the niggas come and rent them for the day, or
there's
not rent them, but just take them out?
There's a great picture of when we got the stash of them, Channel Island surfboards. We got good stuff. And we get to the Erez checkpoint, and there are some real assholes in the military, both sides, because when you give someone a little power, they just turn into a petulant prick ball. Mm-hmm. And these Israeli commandos didn't want to let us take the surfboards into Gaza. They could be full of, I don't know, guns or something. We're like, what the hell? The thing's less than a pound. It's like what the hell are you talking about? And my dad just took the surfboards and ducked underneath the border, like the gate.
The bar that comes
down. Yeah, and just hoofed it across the dead zone. There's a famous picture of him with like shirtless 90-year-old man taking surfboards. He was ballsy, I really admired him, I was scared shitless.
Did your father, did he speak Yiddish or Hebrew?
Yeah, Yiddish. His Hebrew was okay,
And you can get by?
I can speak Hebrew. Mm-hmm. I learned it when I was 12, and I was really at the peak of my crimes.
That's when you hit.
I went crazy. Yeah,
you hit the zenith at 12.
I was bad. I was really. My dad sent me back to Israel by myself
because you're such a wild card, or
the wild card was David had already gone before me. I didn't know, and was studying for his confirmation, religious confirmation thing they call a bar mitzvah, and
you have to study for that.
You have to say it in Hebrew, and you have to point at the Bible, and it's the Torah, and it's heavy. I opted out of that, but I when I was there, I just kind of went wild. I was a nightclub bouncer, like 12 years old, in a suit.
So you've always been a tall cat then?
No, I was normal size. I was a kid. I was 12.
Well,
I was
pretty
bald.
tall now.
I was bald down there. I wasn't at hair one. I was a little grom. But these guys that had this club, Blue Hawaii, they had a lot of American-speaking clients, and nobody spoke English. And so they said, "Look, you're going to stand at the door with."
So you were some sassy little shit.
Sassy little bastard. I had a GNS skateboard, and I used to go to this bank, which had a bank, no pun intended. The Bank of Israel, Leomi Lee, had an embankment like a quarter pipe. And I wasn't ever a great skateboarder. I was more of like a slalom, like kook, or downhill La Costa kind of guy.
Sidewalk surfing.
Yeah. Well, I never said that. That was way too
sophisticated,
nerdy of a statement. But I'd do one kick turn off of this quarter pipe, and people would throw money at me. So I actually made money. That was the first money I made in Israel, was like, alms for the skater.
You sure they weren't doing that so you'd get the fuck out of there?
No, they thought it was amazing. They thought it was hysterical. A big, not big, a famous magazine in Israel did a story about me and said, no one knows who this kid is. They called me the butterfly. And like they never used my name or anything. They said, "Oh, we don't know who he is. He shows up once or twice a week, and he skateboards here. What is this thing?" It was very funny. I mean, everything about it was surreal.
And so you got shipped over there when you're 12 because you're wreaking havoc.
Wreaking havoc, yeah.
And you stayed with relatives or
No,
friends?
I found out David was there, so I went straight there. And David was living in what I would consider squalid, fecundity environment.
Mm-hmm.
It was fecundo. It was disgusting. Naked light bulbs hanging from wires. This guy Lior yelling at his wife constantly. I mean, the plus size was she had like pendulous, beautiful mammalian glands that she just wore a white tank top all the time, and you could just see her beauty, and that was cool. But the whole beer and cigarette-ness of the place sickened me.
How did your brother know these people?
He was studying with their son for his bar mitzvah, I think.
But your pops know them, or did he just go?
No, I think they were friend of a friend of a friend. But
So your dad was pretty just like,
yeah, a little
he trusted you
little
guys.
fly by wire, yeah. So I ran away from there, and
David was still there.
David was still there, yeah. I ran away from there, and I found a place where these guys were just leaning against the seawall drinking, and they were really cool guys. And the guy said, "Oh, you should just, go take over whatever the guy's name was, Yalon or David or whatever, his old apartment." I said, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "The boat." I said, "What boat?" He goes, "Look." He walked me down the beach, and there was this like kind of a big belly boat that had been tilted up against the seawall. And over the years, some sand had kind of developed around it. So it was kind of like a big pasta shell leaning against the seawall boat. And one corner of it, you could kind of dig around and get inside. And once you got inside between the seawall and the boat, it was like a big space. I mean, you could stand up straight. And I said, "Oh my God, it's amazing." It wasn't damp or wet in there. It was dry and nice. And so I went around in there, dragged all my stuff in there, and converted the inside to like a little honeycomb hideout. And I lived in the boat. I lived behind the boat for months and months. I lived behind the boat.
And your family doesn't know where you are?
Nobody knows where I am now.
And no, obviously aren't any cell phones, probably not even pay phones around.
No, I had no desire to call home. I was completely.
And David never said, "Hey, where'd he go?"
He was on his own weird trip. I remember seeing him one time in some Letterman's jacket, and no idea who he was. He'd walk right past me. It was like weird. It was very weird. He was. So
you're 12 years old, living in an abandoned boat on the beach
Yeah.
in Israel.
Yeah, in Tel Aviv. So fun.
And getting money thrown at you for skateboarding.
Yeah. And then.
And sometimes working as an intermittent bouncer.
Well, what happened was after I lived in the boat, I was surfing with some of my dad's friends, and I ran over this, which was just like a head in the water because he was swimming. I didn't know what he was, but this guy's redheaded kind of guy. I ran him over, and then I yelled at him, and he yelled at me, and he invited me to the beach to fight. And I came in on the beach, a little kid, and this guy was like 7 feet tall. And he was a twin. There were two of them, Alex and Shuki. And I was like, "What the hell?" I mean, it's the most handsome giant men you've ever seen, like the biggest muscular Paul Newmans you've ever seen in your life. And I was like, "Who are these guys?" And they laughed so hard. They kind of pushed me around a little bit, but like nicely, slaps and stuff. And we laughed about it. And they go, "What are you living in this boat?" He said, "Yeah, I like it. It's kind of cool." They said, "No, come live with us. We have a big flat and you can work at the nightclub. We need someone who can speak English."
And all this dialogue is going on in English?
No, in Hebrew.
Okay, it was going.
Yeah. Because by then, I'd gotten to the point where I actually could speak a little Hebrew, I mean.
But at no point did anybody ever go, "Hey, why is this kid just wandering the streets and skateboarding?"
Never, not once.
He needs to be in school?
Not once.
Or we think that little Grom is like living in the boat?
Not once. There was never like in America where they had like truancy detectors or police, nothing like that. I mean, in theory, you could have been you could have been just an orphan. I mean, they're orphans there. Israel was a little bit of a wild, wild west. And Alex and Shuki actually were kind of unique characters too, because they were raised by Bedouin Arabs. And they were completely off the grid. They didn't even have their fingerprints registered anywhere, which led to their life of larceny that came later.
And you partook in some of this?
Well, a little bit. I helped them pick up some things that were parts of a mechanical thing that they constructed to use phosphorus to burn through the safe in a bank. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't actually part of the bank.
All that
like
sounded
robbery.
really ambiguous and quite suspect.
Well, I drove with their guy, and I went and picked up like big pieces of like metallic things that were magnetized that helped
You
them.
were an accomplice in a bank robbery.
I picked up
and
metal.
then were their
metal-
driver. Is that what you're saying?
No, I wasn't a driver. They did this on their own. They went and did it on their own. But they used these metal pieces and created kind of like a structure that magnetically stuck onto a safe. And they then would take the top of the structure off and put these self-made phosphorus bullets in, and then you ignite it and you close it, and it burns through the wall so that you can reach in and open the safe. Mm-hmm. And they did that. They did that. But I mean, by the time they did that, I was gone. I was, I'd already gone back to America.
How long were you there for then?
I think that 12, 13, a year and a half or something like that.
And how did your family get back in touch with you? Or did you get back in touch?
I got paid by those guys to the point where I bought a ticket home. I actually got a ticket through a guy because they used to have a thing called travel agencies.
Yeah.
And he booked me a
What a
ticket
weird
and got me a ticket to Canada to like the part of Canada that's right above New York. I forget what town that was, but
it depends on where, but like above Buffalo when you cross the border.
Yeah, by Niagara Falls. There's a big airport there. I forget what it was, but he got me a ticket and I flew there. And my parents were in New York visiting his parents or something, and they picked me up.
So you got off a plane and called him?
No, my guys called him.
Okay.
And arranged it and whatever.
And you'd sort of settled down by that time?
No, not at all.
No.
I never really went back to living with them after that. Because when I got back, I was just like, I was used to being a brigand. I was used to being a real self-living by myself guy. I mean, by then I was like 13 or 14, and I think I moved into an abandoned home in San Clemente behind my friend's house, and just started working on whatever I thought was a way to make money, which was usually
construction?
No, I mean, it was a lot of different things. I did construction. I was a glass man for years. I worked at a Piggly Wiggly. I worked at a Howard Johnson. I did anything I could.
Now you're showing your age.
Yeah.
Wiggly.
I did anything I could. And I eventually got to the point where I could see that the surf industry was going to do something. And
so you're still surfing all the time?
Yeah, of course, surfing. And between my friends in San Clemente and some other people, I kind of got hooked up with competitive longboarding. And by that time, I was living in San Clemente with a friend of mine's family. And somewhere in there, I got motivated to move to Santa Barbara because our friends were going to go to school in UCSB. And I went up there and I met this guy, amazingly intelligent, cool guy. And he was very European and very cosmopolitan. He'd been a childhood actor. And he said, when I moved to this town, I love Santa Barbara, but where do you go to dance? And I was thinking, that's funny. I was just been in Tel Aviv, and like, it was so cool to be in a room where everybody was dancing. They danced, and he and I wandered the streets till we found a Mexican restaurant that had the only cabaret license, dance permit in all of Santa Barbara. And I was like, how can this be? Well, it's an old school town. They just don't give out these cabaret licenses.
You actually have to have, in order to,
yes,
like kind of like a discotheque, you have
it's
to have
got to have fire exits. That's all the stuff.
Did that change somewhere along the line?
I don't know, but the guy was like a total curmudgeonly Mexican guy. I used all my Mexican powers on him, and we said, "Look."
Did you speak Spanish at that time?
Terribly, but yeah, a little bit. And we convinced him his 2 worst nights. We said, what are your 2 worst nights? He says, Tuesday and Thursday. We said, okay, we'll split the bar with you, and we keep all the door. And he goes, well, no problem, done. Because Sierra Hacienda's Mexican restaurant on Tuesdays was a ghost town. So we covered the whole front of it in this industrial black plastic and made it like kind of a package, like the front facade of the building. And we made business cards saying for free for 1 drink at Club Iguana. And we went out to City College and UCSB. And also there's the Christopher School of Beauty. There's the Brooks Institute of Photography. There's all these nice little niches of foxes and young, beautiful people in Santa Barbara. And we gave all of the most attractive girls we could find a free invitation and a free drink. Everybody else was $20 at the door, which was extremely expensive. Brooke, my partner, came up with all this. He was a genius. And the first night we shut the town down. We had the police out there. It was on State Street in Santa Barbara, 525 State. And it was so many people that the traffic was blocked because people were just walking back and forth. What's going on here? Blocking State Street. The subsequent years, like 5 years, say, that I spent there doing that, was my introduction to real debauchery and just so much fun and just.
So you're like 15 to 20 there or something?
No, I was older then. I was like 18, 19, 20. Yeah, like in that bracket.
And you still were an avid surfer?
Well, not as much. Santa Barbara, you have to go down to Rincon, or you have to, so we did.
Put on a thick wetsuit back in the day.
It wasn't as much surfing in Santa Barbara, but we go down to Malibu and stuff occasionally if there was waves. But I was happy in Santa Barbara. I had hundreds of girlfriends. I had all this kind of like social connection that I'd never had before. Because even though I was speaking a little Hebrew in Israel, it wasn't the same as being able to like really connect and make emotional connections with other peers like this experience was for me. My whole previous part of my life was just with my family, students at surf camp and stuff like that. But this was real. Like I was like I was making like myself a little social niche.
This is sort of like your college years.
Yeah, kind of. Everybody was in college that was there.
Yeah,
that was coming there.
That you had that experience.
Yeah, and it was fun.
You just didn't have to study, so it was a lot.
It was fun.
Not like a lot of people do.
And it was kind of new wave coming into that. We had Tones for Tails. We had like a Flock of Seagulls. The Thompson Twins. All these guys, Green on Red. They all came to the club. I mean, we were on fire. Club Iguana, Club Your Mama.
Well, when did you end up? Was it after that you ended up going and winning the?
It was after that.
Longboard championship?
Yeah, it was at the end of that. That ended around, I want to say, 85, 86, somewhere in there, 85 or 4. And I started surfing again. I ran into my dad. He said, you look pale, blah, blah, blah. You need to start, really focusing. And I went and met him at San Onofre. And he had this guy, Glenn Kennedy, make me a board that he had like brainstormed a shape that he thought would work. And there was my brother and another guy that came.
Which brother?
Abraham.
Okay. Is he one of the ones you're close with?
Very. I mean, I'm close with all of them, but Abraham he's a mensch, which means man. And he and these other guys said, we want to do a tribute to Tube Steak, the king of Malibu. Terry Tracy in the Gidget movies was the original Tube Steak, and Tube Steak and the Gidget movies were based on our friend Kathy's life. Her father Frederick wrote a book about her life at Malibu, and it became a book called Gidget, a girl midget. And the guys in it, Lance Carson, Terry Tracy, the Great Tube Steak, or Kahuna, these are all real characters in the movie that was later done with Sandra Dee. This is all real, and.
Wasn't there a TV show too?
There was.
With Sally Fields or something like that?
Yeah, there was.
That was her, right?
Yeah. And so Kathy Koner was kind of the mistress of this, and we paid homage to Tube Steak. And it turned into, because he didn't want it all about him. He was a very discreet guy, Tube Steak. And he said, let's just do a contest and a barbecue. And that's what I would be happy with, because you'll give me free beer and free barbecue. And Abraham's like, done. So we invited like Mickey Dora and Skip Fry and Lance Carson and David Nuiva and Dale Dobson and all these guys to this thing. Or Abram and these guys did, Irma something, this guy Irma or Irwin. And he was his goal was he wanted to put it all on video because some of these great legends were getting older. And I don't know what happened, but I showed up at this thing after my dad had kind of trained me, and I just blew everyone out of the water.
Was it one of the first ones that was held down there?
Yeah, Malibu. And I got like first or second, I forget. But I mean, I just tore through the competition, you know. And a couple of times later, there were some big events, and the Chart House Restaurant sponsored a world longboard tour, which you had to have a team and compete individually. So guys, you know, formed up in teams. And my team with Herbie and Skip Fry and all that, we won by far. Jay Riddle, all these guys, and my brother Israel. We blew everyone out of the water. And then at the finals, to determine of the top 5 teams who was the best surfer, would be given the world longboard title to. That was 86, I think. It was the finals were finally held at San Onofre when they finally got the permit. And I won that.
Which is the wave you grew up on.
Yeah. I mean, I was unstoppable. I was unstoppable. Yeah. It was the best moment. It was absolutely awesome. My whole family
was anybody else in your family? Did they ever win?
Yeah,
championships?
Israel was the champion. Israel actually won one of the most prestigious longboarding events ever, which was Hang Ten Clothing relaunched the Great Hang Ten Classic, and I mean the amount of time you have to spend on the nose hanging 10 is insane. And Israel was perched up there like a parrot on the nose of his board in, out of all places, of all weird places to hold the finals, Sebastian's Inlet, Florida. Adorable little waves. Everybody was there. It was a free-for-all. It was 105 degrees with 90% humidity. I mean, mosquitoes so big they discussed whether they should take you away and eat you at home or at the beach. I mean, it was insane. And Israel, like, destroyed the competition. And got sponsored by Nike for winning. He was the Aqua Sock. Remember Nike Aqua Sock?
I do.
He was the spokesperson for Nike Aqua Sock.
So that's like 93, 94.
Yeah, by then it was some 10 years later. Yeah.
94.
But during that period of time, we all made money surfing. Jimmy Z sponsored me.
Jimmy Z. I remember.
Yeah, with the Velcro board shorts. Jim Ganser was such a mensch. He was such a manly, wonderful man. And he would say, no, we need to sophisticate you. We need to introduce me to his art friends and like, you know, Ed Rushka and Moses and all of his like artisan bros of California creative guys. And he'd take me to New York and we'd do fashion shows there and try to, you know, sell Jimmy Z. I remember one time he took me to the head of Rolling Stone Records and, you know, introduced me to like all the Peter Tosh family. And I mean, it was just an adventure. It was like a total learning experience adventure, which really got me addicted to creating kind of an environment of kindred spirits, a camaraderie through product.
Before you go on, I just wanted to ask one question because I was thinking, you said that you sort of had been the wild card and you were a bit feral. When you came back and your father sort of dragged you out and said you look like a vampire and you need to get back in the water and stuff, was he like pushing you to become a champion at that point? Was he pushing you to just get back into surfing? Or
I think he just saw it as a kind of a passage to getting me in the water again.
Was he really proud of you and your brother when you guys won?
Oh yeah, it was funny. It was fun and funny, and he loved it. And he was very instrumental in the psychology of what it was about to go out in every heat. Like he was like, read the waves. He would talk to you about it. You know, he could say, oh, the sets are coming in from the north like that. You see that wave the tide's going to go out, so that's going to be over here now. And you know, he just like, you know, he was such a waterman. He could tell what the temperature of the climate of the wave was going to be, and all these guys were trying to get onto this right slide point wave on this side, but no, you go over here and wait for big ones, because they only count the 3 biggest waves. It doesn't matter if you catch 10 waves. It's better to catch 3 great waves than 10 mediocre waves. And he would work the philosophy with me and also the physical aspect of it. I would get up in the morning. He would allow me to have a little coffee, but then he would say, okay, nothing for a while. And then a little banana, and then this and that. He would feed me. You have to be hungry. You have to empty stomach. Your balance goes south. As soon as you put a little meat in your belly, you're going to get loggy or whatever. He had theories, and I listened to him.
Was he a vegetarian
No.
too? No, he did eat meat then.
My father's book he wrote called Surfing in Health. One thing I love about it is it's a very bird's eye view snapshot of what people call now blue zones, of people's systemic use of food in healthy ways that have allowed them to live into their hundreds. That generally comes from working class people. The nabobs are wealthy, they eat like kings and queens and they die quickly. And people who are too poor and too feral to really eat enough and can't sustain the caloric input necessary, they die off because they don't have enough. Now, the middle people, they're taking just enough calories and they're putting out enough calories that there's a balance. And usually those people are slender. One of the few things that my father learned in medical experimentation was that the one way to make their experimental rats live longer was to underfeed them. That was the only proven way of keeping them alive longer. Overfeeding immediately cut their lifespans. So, he had certain theories, but in the theories of the universal diet, as he put it, the 5 pillars of health, the recreation, the relaxation, the recreation, the diet, the nutrition, these
There was
things.
5 pillars.
Yeah, you have to read the book. So in that, there is a kind of a formula, and it's very little, a little bit of meat, and lots of fruits and vegetables, and that essentially is it in a nutshell. To live a long and healthy life.
But do you eat meat every day, or do you sort of?
No, he didn't. He ate meat at least 2 or 3 times a week, though.
And fish?
Fish was meat. Yeah, he considered them all the same, but he preferred fish, of course. But he didn't ever. I never saw him sit down and eat 5 hamburgers, glut himself on a 72-ounce T-bone or anything like that. My father was very, very, very controlled and he was very
draconian in his ways and very.
Yes, he didn't fly off the handle and glut himself ever. I never saw him do anything that was aberrant like that ever.
And
not once.
Besides the time I guess he caught a virus or an illness towards the end of his life, he was
never sick,
specimen of
never
health?
in the hospital, never nothing wrong with him. He didn't have any kind of illnesses. He had never had. I mean, one time he had a thing on his ear that looked really weird, and he showed his dermatologist friend. And his friend says, "Oh, that is definitely cancer." So in the guy's office, while the guy's telling him, "Yeah, that's definitely cancer," he steals a little lidocaine, like a pad, and he rubs his ear where it is on the side of his ear with this lidocaine pad, and he takes a hole punch and he just punches it off. He says, "Oh, it's cartilage. It won't even bleed that much," and it didn't. But he just he was very bohemian and abrupt and impromptu when it came to things for himself.
What did his buddy say?
He's like, "That's kind of, I'd have cut it off for you, Doc." He's like, No, I saw the hole punch. It made perfect sense, because it was a little bigger than a hole punch. So 2 punches got it,
And he always had a piece of his ear.
He had a little
clipped
nick in his ear. No, he did it pretty well. I mean, it was a little brutal, but I mean, I've never once saw him lamenting a flu in bed ever. I never saw that ever. He never was like that guy. He was always healthy. He walked every day. He did a lot of things that.
So you guys didn't eat much Mexican cuisine from your mother?
Well, we did, but
did.
beans and rice and tortillas, corn tortillas is one thing. Beans and rice and cheese, that's Whitey. Whitey came up with that.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, you're white. You're Caucasoid. You're Caucasian, and that's fine. But we, as natives, so we would be in Mexico, and you see our Mexican friends. They'd have dinner a whole week. You never see cheese. It was fish, it was rice, it was beans, it was fruits, it was vegetables, it was salads, papayas.
Sometimes you see feta, but that's cheese is pretty good for you.
Well, I didn't see much feta in Mexico, but
Not in Mexico,
they
but
have
in-
a feta. It's called.
Yeah.
It's white. It's hard. It's kind of flavorless. It's kind of a. It's there's a cheese like Jalisco cheese that's like that. Yeah. That's like a taco cheese, yeah. But we didn't use that much. Also because my dad didn't let us mix milk and meat because of his religious upbringing. He was trained to never put cheese on meat.
Kosher.
Yeah, well, not kosher, just the way he was raised.
Well,
Because his
that-
dad wasn't kosher, his family wasn't kosher.
Okay, they weren't.
No, but they all disagreed. They all agreed that cheese on meat sucked. So that's just was that.
That's funny. Well, that is being kosher, though. I mean, if you
Yeah.
do that, because I remember the first
Well,
time.
it's part of the process, but I mean, he didn't do it because he was kosher. He did it because, if you're trained growing up to eat spicy food, then as an adult you like spicy food, and he was trained to detest the union of cheese on meat, especially on fish. There was never an excuse to have fish of any kind with cheese. It was just like a grand food faux pas. You never.
Were you allowed to eat carnitas?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
But
I didn't know it was your
Well,
father.
he disapproved of us eating pork, of course.
But carnitas is.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, there was a luau in Hawaii. And I went there, the Filipino family next to us that did the luau, they left all the scraps at the bottom on the chicken wire. And I was just feeding on that. I was like, oh my God, this is this succulent brown meat. It was just insane. Just the little tidbits that was
Were all the
copious
fats
stuff. Yeah.
dripped down on it? Oh, that sounds
I'm
great.
drooling just thinking about it. And I was eating it. I said, Dad, this is the best meat I've ever eaten. He goes, well, that's Mr. I won't mention the name, family trick. And he, he's Filipino. So the bottom underneath the pig is a black dog. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's a black dog meat. And I was like, what?
No, it wasn't.
It was.
So the fat from the pig was dripping down to the dog, and all the meat that had.
Yeah, I never ate
fallen
another
onto-
luau again after that. I was so every dog I saw, I cried. I was wasted for like a year after that. I just felt like almost like a cannibal, that I'd eaten a dog, or I didn't know, but it was true. Some of the Filipino and Hawaiian families would put a black dog underneath a pig.
So growing up in a pretty mixed setting, did you identify more as Native American or Mexican?
No,
than
because
you
we
did-
were like
saw yourself as a
hybrids. We were, none of our friends that were our American surfer bros, which was an interesting conundrum because they were all blonde-haired, blue-eyed surfers. There was actually a period of time where every surfer was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. There was kind of a great unspoken prejudice in surfing. They didn't let the brown guys in the
When you guys were in
circle.
Hawaii, I mean, you fit in.
That's Hawaii.
Yeah.
But to be truthfully honest, even Dukanamoku, the greatest surfer of modern times, he was kind of ostracized for being dark. I remember Dane Kealoha, when he went and surfed some of the first pro contests in the history of international surfing, he got to the leg that was in South Africa, and they called him an N-word and didn't let him go into this restaurant with the rest of the American team. And he goes, bro, I don't know where you're coming from, brother, uncle, but I'm Hawaiian. And the guy said, yeah, well, sorry, bro, but you're from here, you're colored, and you're not allowed in here, bro. And he was heartbroken. It really broke his heart. It hurt his feelings tremendously. And afterwards, I remember him saying something to me like, my feelings were hurt badly. But can you imagine like seeing your dad verbally abraded, a young African-American black child, like holding your father's hand and having some fat cop call him the N-word to his face? And he had to stand there and take that? And then you hear about the Tulsa Massacre and blah, blah, blah. And we just embraced that as kids. We were told everything. My dad told us everything. He didn't shelter us from anything.
But in Hawaii, did you feel like you fit in more?
Oh, for shoots, brah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love.
Did they think you were natives there?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And my great dream as a child in Hawaii was to be Japanese.
Why?
because they're the most elegant, cultured people in the world.
Oh, there's sort of a hierarchy there.
Yeah, everything's down. They plan for everything. They're masters with chopsticks. They're just saintly, wonderful people.
But in the hierarchy in Hawaii, are they sort of on the
Hawaii is
upper
Pan-Asian.
echelons?
It's Pan-Asian. It's gigantic.
But what I mean on
population.
the sort of in the pecking order, they up to
Yeah.
top.
Well, in my family, some of the people we looked up to, some of them mostly, were a lot of the Japanese American families, and I just really wanted to be Japanese. My mom told me, I came home one day and said, "Mom, are you Japanese?" She said, "No." "Is Dad Japanese?" I said, "No." And then she said, I cried for like 5 hours. "Am I Japanese?" "No." Because I thought I looked a little Japanese.
Your ancestors did come across the
Yeah.
Bering Strait there.
But I
at some
loved
point,
Hawaii,
right?
and I loved growing up there, and I loved the familiarity of it. And like when we lived on the west side, I remember we would just fall down in the sand next to our house and sleep outside. There were no snakes. There's nothing that could get us. No wild dogs. My mom would let us sleep outside on the ground. We weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
High tide wasn't going to get us. I mean,
And now is it that you're older? I mean, do you tend to identify more with your, I guess, Jewish side, or you tend to identify with your mother's
To me, I
indigenous side?
Well, yes, I feel like a little more connected to my mom's side in some ways, but also some of my greatest friends and my connections in life were these Israeli commando guys, these Israeli guys that I learned to surf with and spent time with, which include not all Jewish Israelis, is Muslim Israelis, Palestinian Israelis. And
Christian.
or there's very few Christians anywhere except like Jerusalem. You see a lot of Christians in Jerusalem.
But there are Christian Palestinians as well.
Yes, there are. But I mean, I really love them, and I love this kind of, Simpsons kind of.
Who are you on The Simpsons?
You know that when they were in that like club and they did that secret handshake,
Like they're alluding
Mr.
to
Burns was like the
Illuminati
head
or something,
like the Illuminati. Yeah.
yeah.
There's kind of like a friendship amongst this kindred spirit, that they're not religious Jews; they're just Jews by club, and I like that. I'm a club Jew, and
But when you're in California, are you more indigenous?
no, I don't think I'm in either of the above.
No.
Because we're not.
You guys were just from the Paskowitz clan. You
Yeah.
guys were your own
We're totally our own thing. We're a different.
breed.
Yeah, we're a
Be like-
liger.
would it be
We're
like
ligers.
Wouldn't it be like Jexican or something? A Jexican, maybe. Is that a good word for it?
What is that you're drawing? It's a liger. It's like the most magical beast ever. It's a mix between a tiger and a lion. It's liger. That's what we were. We were ligers. But beside that, not often, but a few times heard people tell my dad to get those little N-word half-breeds off the beach. One time I heard that. I heard a guy say something bad about my mom one time that she was
using like a spick or something.
Yeah, bad words about my mom for being so dark, and it was a little hurtful. It bothered me. It sunk in, and during a couple times courses of my life in California and some other places, I've had people say some anti-Semitic things to me. We were in an elevator one time, and this guy goes, "Oh, you're Paskowitz." I said, "Yeah." He says, "What's the difference between a Jew and an apple pie?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, apple pie doesn't scream when you throw it in the oven." I was like, "What a dick! Why would you tell a
thought that was
kid
funny?
that?" Yeah,
Oh, you told when you
I
were a
was
child.
I was like 14. There's good and bad everywhere. Like Trump said, there are good people on both sides. He was talking about the Nazis.
Are you quoting Trump now? This is where we're going?
I hate
Did
his
you want
voice.
to go there?
He sickens me on so many levels. I think the whole American government needs to be redone.
Don't you think they just need
No,
to
they-
do
they-
away with maybe the Constitution?
No revolution.
Why not?
They just need to get people that want to work for free, that want to be in government to help people on short terms. There's no renewal. You come in, you help, you've done your duty, and you're out. You can't be a filibuster or
Lobbyist.
a lobbyist afterwards. None of that exists. In fact, throw out PACs, C PACs, S PACs, Z PACs, all the PACs throw out. There's no such thing as. In fact, there shouldn't. They should figure out a way that the campaigns. There's no money pitched into the campaigns. It's only public speaking on public radio for people to hear.
So NPR is
I
the
did an
big promoter?
NPR. I did an NPR with Terry Gross. Hi, this is Terry Gross from NPR. Welcome.
They all kind of have that similar
This
voice.
is Fresh Air from NPR. Welcome.
They all have that sort of light.
Oh my God, I was
like,
so
Chicagoan. Like,
you don't know. Growing up, Paskowitz, our entertainment was radio.
I love radio.
There was NBC and CBS radio for a while. There was Mystery Theater. Do you remember Mystery Theater?
I don't recall. I do. I recall other stuff like.
You turn on the radio.
I remember the. What was it? The Doctor
No,
Demento.
Demento. We never listened to him.
Oh yeah, that was one of the ones I liked.
I remember Dr. Demento.
I remember Wolfman Jack. I remember
Wolfman Jack. Yeah.
the voices coming over the radio, and I'd be like, "Who is that guy?"
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you could imagine who that person
Yeah.
was, and it didn't matter if it matched up to it or not because you never see him. But
Yeah.
it was just this voice came over, and the idea I could turn it on the car.
Yeah.
And this person
We would sit in the car. We'd turn on the radio. It was on AM. And we'd turn on this channel. And it was like Mystery Theater. And the way that they played it out, the orators that would speak this part, and a lot of them often were famous pieces, like a lot of Poe, the Telltale Heart or something that they could be spoken back and forth like a little theatrical moment, and man, some of them were extremely gripping and scary. We were just like, ah! And then my dad would say, no, turn that off. I don't want any nightmares. We'd be like, oh, God, we're all going to have nightmares.
The Twilight Zone was actually started as a radio show.
Yeah, I heard that.
And Rod Serling, I think it was, he originally
Was a radio personality?
Yeah, he was. And then he did it on the radio, and they go, well, and somehow it transformed within a year and a half to 2 years, and they're like, we need him on it.
Boy, that was certainly a success. That I love the Twilight Zone.
It's just so weird to think.
We were all huge fans of stuff like that. We were all very much science fiction family. We loved science fiction. We loved the whole thing about science fiction and futurism and all that.
I just always think about how weird that was with the backdrop of the nuclear family in the 50s. Like, how did that show come about?
Yeah.
It just seems so paradoxical.
Yeah.
With, you're supposed to have the 2 kids, 2.5 kids,
Yeah.
the dog.
Yeah.
Mom's in an apron, dad's going off with a briefcase, and you have the Twilight Zone come on.
Yeah.
I don't know how did they like approve that show?
Yeah, I don't know, but
It
some of
doesn't
the
make
things
any
were
sense.
very dramatic.
They were
And if you
really
look
trippy.
across the roster of the years of different contributors, the Rolodex of actors that contributed to that, the Burgess Merediths, the Vincent Prices, phenomenal talent that played parts in that. We really loved it, but. I was going to segue the Mystery Theater into the fact that one of the things that we used consistently for entertainment, of course, was NPR, National Public Radio, because we could listen to that and hear almost anything. I mean, it was a rich tapestry of what you might hear on NPR. Often it was like technical conversations about something that was very specific, or conversely something scientific with people speculating about could Buckminster Fuller's idea of geodesic domes floating in the ionosphere be a form of habitation for the future when the surface of the Earth becomes like post-apocalyptic? And you're sitting there listening to these guys at, Santa Barbara City College having this conversation, and it would be on NPR. And
They've lost a lot of money, though.
We love that.
There's not the kind of funding there was back in the day for
Well,
that
it
kind
was
of thing.
National Public Radio. I don't know.
And I think that now they're getting funding through podcasts. I mean, there's one show I still listen to on I guess, the podcasts that are syndicated called This American Life. That's kind of fun.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's with it's been around for quite some time with Ira Glass.
Oh, I know that name.
He almost came on with the exact same voice you used earlier. I'm Ira Glass, and we're talking about like this kind of thing, you know. And, he's great. He's got he does his shtick, but and really interesting little anecdotes about everyday American life, and sometimes how they transform into these trippy tales.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that are just sort of very common and how it relates to your life, or maybe it's about a little league team and what happened with them, or it turns into.
But the anecdotal stories and the day in the life of stories, for me, as a kind of born and bred voyeur, I love that. I find that very interesting and very compelling. Often the stories of just people's day in their lives, I think, is very, very interesting to see what's the norm for some people. There used to be a girl that did a little segment and something that we would find on the radio from Appalachia. And she would just talk about and then we mix the lemonade. And of course, we're pouring everything into these mason jars. And, she'd just go about and babble about what she was doing. It's funny, there's a girl on Instagram that does the same thing. And
I think most people just babble.
incredibly interesting, though. And it was captivating to hear about it, and to hear about how she was talking about the things she was doing and why she did it, how you clean the chitlin out. Well, this is the lower part of the pig's intestine, so you got to clean it well. And you're just like, holy mackerel. It was just very interesting. And NPR was great segue for us because we all like to play voice games and we like to read aloud. So we would do that based on some of the inspiration from things we would hear on NPR. And there was a lot of things that we found, various stories and poems and short stories that you could read two or three brothers together, and that really, my parents would love that, and they would sit in with us and be entertained by it, like reciting a poem or something like that. My mom loved to try to get us to sing together because she was a singer, but despite the fact David was in a band, Adam was in a band, Salvador was in a band, Israel was sang sometimes, Joshua, was a huge singer. He still has his band. We never really sung together very well. We never formed like that a cappella group that she always dreamed of. One point, we finally all agreed, and she taught us all to sing some of Bach's Mass stuff that she had to sing when she was a little kid because she was raised Roman Catholic. So she taught us Kyrie eleison, which is a series of voices all saying Kyrie eleison. You've heard it. It's in Bach's Mass. But it becomes kind of this roundabout, beautiful, vibrating sound when you get all of the...
Almost like trance of some sort.
It is kind of like ambient trance, yeah. And she loved to hear us sing that. But later on, David became very famous for two of his bands, Johnny Monster and the Nightmares and Goldfish. I remember when we were younger, when David started to really peak, you could not get in to see him when Goldfish was playing. He would play in the biggest venue available in Laguna Canyon, and there would be hundreds of people outside and the inside, packed beyond the fire marshal's wildest nightmares. And he would just rock the house till they closed the place. He was an amazing performer. And Adam and Joshua did a band called The Flies, which had a song, Got You Where I Want You, which was in the top 10. And they actually opened for the Rolling Stones and did some stuff like that. Yeah, so the brothers kind of had their little musical moments,
What are they up to now?
They're all over the place. David has his two daughters and his wife living in the Oakland area, working on his nonprofits. He likes to help soldiers that are amputees, and he helps a friend of ours that has a nonprofit for them, teaching them how to surf. Abraham has a distribution company in San Clemente for surf industry stuff. Israel's been nonstop running the Surfers Healing, the surf camps and nonprofit for autism, which we're trying to put together now with the French version, which is called Handy Surf, and have a fête de surf in Biarritz with autism and Down syndrome.
And that's one of the projects you're working on.
I'm working on that loosely right now. We're starting to spitball it and ramp it up. And he also has a ranch, and him and his wife and his children try to contribute to Isaiah, who's now, an adult with autism. And Moses has his real estate license now. He's working in Hawaii, dreaming of selling $1 million house. He has 3 sons, and he's doing his best to just live his best life. And he's, the biggest, strongest Paskowitz, so he's always an amazing guy to hang out with. And Adam is a bit of a traveler. He's been in Florida and Italy and kind of taking his family around the world. Salvador's still in Hollywood. He wrote a movie that was made called The Age of Adeline with Harrison Ford and Blake Lively about a girl that was struck by a kind of a cosmic ray and attained immortality, basically. And it's kind of a first-person view of like following her, like what the hell are you going to do if you actually stopped aging? And it's very interesting and it's funny and romantic. And
he's still writing.
So he wrote that, sold
or?
it, and it came out. It was successful. It did pretty well. And so he stayed in Hollywood, and he's still swinging the bat at the plate for another project. It's hard. Hollywood's hard because content, as you know, is like shifted dramatically. I mean, podcasts and Hulu and Netflix and
AI?
Amazon and AI much lately. Yeah. All that's kind of changed things. And then Adam, Daniel, Nava is married to Ed Asner's son, and she has a big nonprofit that Ed Asner started, Matt Asner started, because they both have autistic kids. And they started a Ed Asner Foundation for Autism, and she works nonstop on that.
Is everybody still involved in surfing? Everybody still
Oh yeah,
surfing?
absolutely. Yeah. And then Josh was an artist who has 2 kids and pregnant with a third, lives in San Clemente, and has his band Star Child, and is a full-on rocker. I mean, he was the headbanger of the family, still is, and he's an artist, draws beautiful waves. I mean, some of his waves, just a wave. Are compelling, beautiful. He calls lowbrow art. Yeah, and everybody's like, everybody's alive and well. Nobody's got testicular cancer. Everyone's doing well, and I'm the kind of I'm the black sheep. Been here in France for coming on 10 years, and kind of just doing things differently.
You're still, but you have a lot of projects you're getting off the ground right now because you're still a full-on entrepreneur,
my
right?
projects are odd. They're a melange of ideas. I mean, one thing that I really believe in, like I say, I'm a science fiction buff. I mean, I'm a huge Philip K. Dick believer and dreamer. The whole concept of Blade Runner and Android's Dream of Electric Sheep really resounded with me. Hit a note in my heart. That
wasn't Red Planet one of the good ones?
There's a lot of good ones.
Planet, I remember.
Valis and Ubix and Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, and the Intergalactic Pod Healer. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, Philip K. Dick was an absolute genius. And he painted a picture of such uniqueness that you really become part of his writing. Science fiction, as a category, sometimes doesn't tell that tale the way a hard readable, like dreamable book can. I mean, other genres, sometimes drama or romance, trump them. But Philip wrote in a way that really immersed you. I mean, you really he noted that thing out of the corner of your eye, and you pick up on those nuances that made you really live it as you read it. And so I've always kind of wanted to do technological things. And when the blockchain technology hit and people started talking about what the dream world would be of what our next iteration of the internet will be, which is, I think, one of the greatest advancements of humankind in the last, century, I was interested in how that would all work. And the blockchain technology is interesting because non-centralized intelligence can be used for other things. I don't believe in collectible NFTs. I do see the future for cyber currency. I mean, right as we're speaking, Bitcoins are almost at 70,000 euros a coin. So, I mean, that's not going away anytime soon. But my concept, my partners, and Adam and Douglas, were to brainstorm a way of using smart blockchain technology for authentication, for chronological advancement of something tangible or intellectual. For instance, it could be a contract, it could be a piece of art, it could be your comic book collection, it could be it's just a way of proving authenticity, but also because it's a smart token, you could use it for experiences like all of your Lollapalooza tickets come on smart tokens. So you buy them like that, you use them, and they come with a little bonus because when you scan that QR code and you go online in a kind of a Web3 environment, it befavors you. It appreciates you. You're a VIP with them now because they can see what you can see, and you've amassed a lot of experience points with them.
So to boil it down, if I can, maybe this makes sense. I'm not sure. It's sort of like because you got those through that medium, you sort of like Mario Brothers. You got a coin and it opened up a new world.
Sure.
That only you're allowed into.
Absolutely, and also that's transferable. So when you go back into that world, like we've pitched Hermes this idea because the Birkin bag is one of the most copied, plagiarized items in the world. You know, they really hit it with that bag, and people know it. It's worth, so it's copied. It's illegally copied a lot. So we pitched them an idea how a smart token could be used with other forms of identification to create an airtight proof of authenticity for a bag. And you can put other things onto the smart token that are unique to your personal ownership of it. But you could also put a contract on it, or you could use it to diversify debt. And you could break down and store debt in a smart token and maybe lean against it in a unique way, or share it, or parcelize it and utilize it in a different way.
How far do you think we're off from actually?
Well, we're actually being done. We're actually up and we're going. DNA, database of native assets, is actually done and going. We just need more customers. You know the UPC barcode.
No,
the scanning code that's on everything.
Okay, yes.
There was a period of time where people fought back against that. They were like, "What is this thing?" You know, and the red laser scans it. Beep. I mean, there was a time where people were like, "What is this?" I mean, they were against it, or people thought the red light was like demonic. Where would we be today if we didn't have barcodes and QR codes? It would be insanity. I mean, you can go to the store and you can scan your food. Can you imagine punching in categories and weighing everything and punching? I mean, it would be a nightmare. That's what smart technology. We did, but this has helped us, and the smart token is going to help us more. It's going to be the next step into a more integrated way of doing the things we want, which is mostly, I think, with the things that we care about, that we want to embrace, like whether you're a comic book collector or you just have a fetish for collecting Nike shoes or something, you will be able to protect yourself against fraudulent things.
And you're thinking it comes in an app form, it comes in the identity form on
QR
your phone?
Code. It's just a QR code on a product, and you scan it, and say you bought some Pat McGrath lipstick, and you want, because cosmetics are horribly plagiarized. You scan it, it gives you some information about it, and then you can compare it to a fact check numeral on their portal. You know it's real. There's no way of faking that.
Okay.
So you know it's not fake cosmetics from some bathtub rip-off company in China or something.
And by the same token, not to use a bad pun, but if that company wanted to verify that you are the owner of that, then they could scan you and say,
but you don't have to use your name. You could you could be a number. You could be THX 1138.
But it would be encrypted.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the thing about blockchain technology, everyone's always saying, there has been a lot of rug pulls, they call it, in blockchain technology, which is basically someone pulling the rug out from under you and ripping you off. But they never occurred on the blockchain. They occur in the exchanges where people are trading cyber currency, or on Discord or something where somebody's stupidly been convinced to pass off the numerals of their contract, their smart contract, and then somebody rips them off. Nobody has ever successfully hacked a chronologically linear blockchain, because from the Genesis block, as you keep adding to it and it keeps changing, each next iteration holds the data from the previous one, and it's impossible to hack it. So you mix that with some other smart form of technology, like it could be an algorithm, a unique computer AI algorithm, or some of the new technology, like there's a computer nose that is so amazing.
computer knows?
Yeah, olfactory nose. A computer olfactory nose. But it's so accurate. You could buy a brand new pair of Nike shoes, have the nose sniff the left shoe and the right shoe, and it would pick up the nuances between the two. Later,
So it's basically
it could tell you it was the same shoe
it's
or not.
technological DNA that is.
It's a sniffer.
So it's like your fingerprint. I mean, it's unique to you. Your DNA is
It's amazing.
unique to you, and that's what it would be.
Yeah.
In an electrical.
Yeah, and like if a company like Hermes said, look,
technological
these Birkin bags have a secret thing we don't even tell you, which is that we sniff the bag and we have a unique pattern that comes from sniffing the bag that you don't even know about. We don't even tell people we sniff the bag. It's secret. See what I'm saying? Like imagine you go out there and you try to copy a Picasso. Everybody knows it's the painting and it's the signature and it's the ink and it's the canvas that it's on. Well, what if you didn't know that Picasso actually put his pubic hairs into the ink in a certain place on every painting? He never told anybody. But if you ever really wanted to know if it was a Picasso, the top secret guys knew that there was some pubic hair in that corner. Okay? Or whatever you want it to be.
All right.
Okay, well, there's people that have secrets of ownership, secrets of authentication that you don't know about, that only they know about, that they use. And that mixed with something like a smart token is infallible for error. It's absolutely beyond the scope of human ability to fake. And so that's neat because going into the future, you can go into things. You could go into a portal on a website and not worry about somebody scamming you or ripping you off or sending you a bunch of junk, buy me, sell me emails and stuff. It's liberating. It's the future. It's Star Trek stuff. And that I'm interested in. And I think
Is it going to prevent all those porn bubbles from popping up everywhere?
Well, I mean, if you're in the orb of your thing, yeah, it would absolutely, because there is no flogging the viewer's eye in this unless you are part of a thing that you want that. You want to see the pop-ups.
Yeah.
You want a lot of suggestions. That's your proclivity. That's your desire. Then you just click, send me all the junk mail. I want to see the junk mail. But if you have your preferences winnowed down to very specific things, junk mail becomes not junk mail. Junk mail becomes, ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Especially if you're in an arena of something that you really like, that you're an expert on, or you fancy yourself an expert. A lot of people collect pocket knives. A lot of people, whatever it is.
Before we move on, I'm going to get to my question here in about 2 minutes, but you started Black Flies and now you're working with other eye companies, right? What are you doing in the South or here in Paris with that?
Well, I relaunched a frame for the thing I was working on, Blood. Mm-hmm. So we have one frame for that. But I've got a company in America that is a sportswear manufacturer that I'm making glasses for them. And there's a couple companies, one based in Switzerland that has a manufacturer in Italy that's interested in picking up some of the action sports lifestyle revenue. So they're offering production to some people that are, from the surf industry. And so I'm kind of like championing their interest in that. But also just making glasses in general. I'm constantly coming up with frame design. I'm constantly, and if I come up with a good design, I can always offer it to somebody, call somebody and say, Oliver Peoples or whoever, do you guys want to do this frame?
Are you actually sketching them out or are you just coming
up? I do it on Illustrator.
Okay.
I'll scan the face of a frame and then I'll start manipulating it until it becomes something that I like. That's the way I design.
Why did you originally move here to Paris?
Just my girlfriend. Fell in love with a girl, friend of mine from GQ that we were friends and we worked kind of like, we got to know each other through working together. And then she was married with 2 kids and we were just friends. And then I heard like a couple trips later, she got divorced and that was it. I started dating her and now 8 years later, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm. And do you like living here in France?
I do. I mean, I wish I spoke French better. It's hard. French is a hard language, And
I heard you earlier. You're doing pretty well, but you already had a pretty good base
I need
in
a lot
Spanish,
of good.
right?
I need a lot of advancement of words. I mean, when you learn words and how they fit in. No, but it's also how you say it. It's kind of, you almost say things backwards in French. Not as bad as Japanese, but you don't say I don't want I don't want to eat any more pizza. Pizza, I don't want to eat more. You would say in Japanese, but in Japanese. And in French, there's kind of things like that as well, where you don't say something in sequence.
Yeah, like one just came to mind. I always like to say in French more.
Is it profanity?
No, not at all. When I like to say in French more, it means more to me in French than it does in English. In English, you say "I miss you," but in French, you say "You're lacking in my life."
Yeah.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah,
to me.
it's like Tom Sachs says, "This won't fail because of me," which is like grammatically horrible. But what he means is, I won't let it fail. But it's funny. French is funny. It's the funniest thing about it is the numbers, by sure.
What's your favorite curse word in French?
I don't really curse that much.
What'd you hear then?
Well, I like that salope. Mm-hmm. I think that sounds cool. I think salope sounds cool. And I think cochon is funny on a lot of levels, even though it just means pig. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny to hear somebody say cochon. Mm-hmm. It's funny because if you're like a nerd kind of like trendy imbecile, they call you a pigeon. Mm-hmm. And I never thought of that, but that's funny to call somebody a pigeon.
Well, in New York, you say, you can call somebody a stool pigeon.
Yeah, but that's a narc. Stool pigeon. Somebody.
Yeah, but it's a derogatory term for.
But here, everybody says merde. Mm-hmm. Everybody even old people say merde. I mean, it doesn't mean
you can speak. I think
yeah, but it doesn't mean shit. And Milo says something like putain all the time, but I don't know what it means.
Putain?
Yeah.
It can mean a lot of different things, but depending on the context, it normally means something close to fuck. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
But if it's said in sort of a lighter manner, it can just mean like damn or.
Well, everything's to him. He just he rolls it pretty hard. But I would say in general, even. My stepson's 18, and like all these kids, they all want to be like tracksuit wearing Adidas or whatever stylized kind of hip hop criminals. I mean, there's a style that's just pervasive with the Parisian kids. It's a hoodie under a jacket with this and that. They have this kind of like gangster look that they.
They like wear Lacoste hats and like really tracksuits are a little more tapered and
there's
the
a little
is what you call them.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the streety kind of.
And you
thing.
have like that Gucci sort of butt pack, but you drape it over the front of you.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole code to that.
Yeah.
Like if you're wearing a butt bag and it's clipped around your waist, but it's in the back, that means you're sporty. If it's in the front, that means you've got lots of drugs. If you have it slide over like this, that means you brought drugs for everyone.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There's
really?
various.
You're making this up as you go along.
Yeah, I am. I'm making it up. But there's various inflictions of how it's worn.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's like the proverbial sock on the doorknob. Like a white sock meant you were having sex with your girlfriend. A black sock meant that, you were emotionally distraught, just like, give me my space. And I think
what
was
about
the other
white
one?
and black sock? Means you're having sex
That means
with your friend's
filming.
girlfriend?
You're filming. Don't open the door. You're filming.
What's your favorite drug?
Probably weed, I would say. Over the years, I've learned to really appreciate cannabis. Now I mostly rub it on my body because like the salves that they have, like I'll go for like I love to ride my bike in Bordeaux region or Bayonne, follow up the rivers. You put on the headphones and you just go into another dimension. It's so beautiful. And these edibles that they have nowadays, like you really feel connected to yourself. They're very spiritual and wonderful. And the older I get, the less I want to smoke anything because it hurts my wind. It cuts my respiration down a little bit. But I've never been a big drinker. I've tried everything. I never injected heroin, but I mean, I tried it, snorting it or whatever. And I don't think I'm a big druggie, I mean, I tried coke. It was a horrible drug. hook is an insidious drug. You try it, and you get high, and you're like, oh, this is the best thing ever, but you never get high again. You just chasing that like elusive high you got the first sniff. It never comes back. You just end up just killing yourself on it. I think it's horrible, but I do think that drugs should be legal everywhere. Everything should be legal, and if people want to, take something and experience something, then they should do it. I think in some ways, almost some form of psychedelics should be mandatory. I mean, I don't know one person that holds much worth in my quorum of friends that hasn't in some way experimented with either psilocybin mushrooms or LSD. That's not to say that they take it now, but almost everybody that I've spent any quality time with in my life, almost every one of them has had some, spiritual experience with psychedelics.
Did your family partake in that?
No, I don't know. No. Not at all.
With like peyote or anything?
Not at all. Peyote's a tough one. Have you ever tried peyote?
No. Do you have any?
Guaranteed you throw up. It looks like kind of a apricot in the shape of a dried vagina. Yeah.
Oh.
And you chew it and you vomit and you feel like shit and then you come onto that like gangbusters and it's very speedy and very weird. It's very like altered states. It's creepy almost. It's hard. I mean, for a full on, I guess microdosing it might be a different thing, but I ate a whole button and just went to like the Gaga de Vida. I mean, truly like broke me down. It was harsh. That's I don't recommend. If you want a psychedelic experience, I strongly recommend LSD, quality LSD, just because you can control a smaller dose of it. It doesn't affect your body as much. It's all cephalic, whereas mushrooms, you feel it in your body a lot. Some people get nausea and they go through those kind of evolutions where first you're a little shaky and then they see cotton candy and then everything turns into kind of a
what kind of mushrooms you eating? You seeing cotton candy?
Well, everything gets fuzzy.
Okay, yeah.
When you go into
Things
that
a little
kind of
cloudy,
gray zone.
sort of hazy
yeah,
thing going on.
Yeah. It's almost like there's a little Vaseline on the lens. And then after that, you're Superman. And sadly, when you're Superman, sometimes you do stupid things. Our friend's kid jumped off the roof of their house, on mushrooms. But again, these Gen Z kids haven't lived an evolution that's gotten them to the point of experiential, like lineage, aggregate intelligence. They just go out and try things stupidly. I think that's why we have such a problem with fentanyl in the United States, because kids, they don't know what the terms of involvement are. They don't know what paying the bill is, and you can't just do something without paying the bill. So, if you smoke angel's dust, we learned when we were kids, you could die on the spot. They didn't have that experience in their lives. So they go out and somebody offers them a line of Coke. It's laced with fentanyl, and they're at their high school prom, 14 and 15 years old, and in that moment, their life ends. Just absolutely needlessly over, because it's just so indiscriminate and it's so powerful. It's on a next level compared to when we were kids. We were like playing war with BB guns, and these guys are playing war with assault rifles, because one shot is one shot to the head too many. We didn't have that. It's kind of like venereal disease. When I was a kid, there was no AIDS. There was no venereal disease that you had to worry about. You
had to worry about herpes, probably.
Well, herpes. I mean, you take a psilocybin acid or whatever. You take lysergic acid, lysine or something, and it's done. You never have an outbreak. I mean, but now these guys are. They're fighting, things that came up like HIV. That was horrible. I mean, when I remember all my gay friends in New York, they were dropping like flies from HIV. It was horrible. It was a terrible time. Great guys, great friends of ours that just, made one mistake and that was it.
This is probably the perfect moment for me to ask you how you'd like to die then. That's a good segue.
I don't think I would like to jump off of something high, just because I think that fall would be so scary. I was thinking like a gunshot to the head. Drowning is the worst.
But not self-inflicted. But not self-inflicted.
No, I mean, or maybe probably the best way to go is by lethal injection. Something like that.
Euthanize? You'd be euthanized?
Yeah, somebody gives you like a nice cocktail with like phenobarbital and opium or something like that, and you just kind of fade into like a happy place. I definitely dislike the way that America kind of puts people into this dopey morphine kind of stupor at the end of their lives. My dad used to fight against that tremendously. He used to say, like, these people don't want to go out in a haze of morphine that, but the doctor's like, oh, they're comfortable. It's very Western medicine, and I'm not a huge fan of Western medicine, to be perfectly honest,
Do you have a reoccurring question or something that's tormented you throughout your life?
Torment? I don't really experience torment in my life. I've learned in my life to really appreciate everything, and I don't feel tormented by anything that really is something that was a misstep, a decision. More wish I could have done different things. I wish I had more time to do more different things. I would have loved to have done more work with my hands. I loved being a glazer and working on building homes and stuff for the time I did that. I loved doing a lot of things like just interesting things, learning about people doing different things. I love food. I love cooking. I love a lot of things. I didn't spend enough time on some of those things, but torment, not really.
Or a question, maybe a philosophical question about life that's tormented you.
Well, I mean, one thing I think all of us want to see is aliens. I mean, I know from a mathematical cosmological point of view that, with the billions and billions and billions and billions of galaxies out there, why are we not coming into contact with some other intelligent form of life? That bugs the shit out of me. I mean, especially if what they say is true and we've actually made contact, and all of these weirdos, that are, in the area, Studio 51, area
52,
area 50.
What is it? Out
Whatever
there, Arizona?
Studio 54.
I've gone to Studio 50.
If there really is a big-headed gray alien in there and we don't know about it, then, F you, America.
I don't think that's possible,
I don't think so either.
I think that it's more likely that they've come a long time ago and left because they were like, these people not on par with us.
But when you talk to people who are real scientists, real forward thinkers of what the concept of time and space are, and people even like some of our modern geniuses who've played with theories like multiple string realities and folding space and things of that nature. You're never going to cross an event horizon in a wormhole in real life and use it as a form of transportation. It's so incredibly powerful. It stretches anything, even light, into like linear molecules. It's not something you're just going to pass through like in Star Trek. Oh, there's a wormhole, and you just go through the wormhole. Until somebody, and at speed of light travel, like to actually make something go like a rocket faster and faster and faster till it achieves the speed of light or surpasses the speed of light, that's never going to happen either, because you're not going to be able to steer at the speed of light. You're not going to be able to like avoid meteors at the speed of light.
How would you slow down?
That would be another interesting thing. If you slow down immediately, like, can you imagine all the blood leaving your pores because you don't like, because you went to like a ridiculous speed, like in Spaceballs? How would you? And then now you have people that are breaking those barriers, like people that are actually working on teleportation, people that are actually working on antimatter, anti-hydrogen matter, anti-helium matter, antimatter, real antimatter. Klystrom collider, creating antimatter. You have those unthinkable things being approached now, and I think that's for me is like, that's some of the stuff that's, I mean, obviously I don't have the brain power or the education to completely understand it all, but I see the toe in going into the pond of this unbelievable futuristic play, which is things like that, like time travel or things. Well, we know now from science there is no such thing going back in time, but there might be something to say about going forward in time. You know, I mean, that would be interesting. You know, anything that's like scientific, that's like breakthrough, I find extremely interesting. I love to hear stories like that.
Isn't it true that if we could achieve the speed of light, that we don't age at that point? If we were to loop around and come back, we would have.
Well, time. The faster you go, the bigger the difference between the time we would experience here and the time at light speed. I loved Einstein's quote on that when they said, "Well, how do you even theorize about what a molecule would be doing at the speed of light?" He goes, "Well, I think imagine myself as a molecule going the speed of light, and then I look around." I always thought that was a great quote. You know. As I've aged, born in the in the 60s, I mean, some of the things that have amazed me, I mean, besides cell phones and computers, I mean, I remember computers with floppy disks, big 5-inch floppy disks, and now my cell phone is 10 times whatever that computer was, 100 times what that computer was. And that kind of stuff I find extremely interesting. Nanotechnology, nanites, and microscopic computers and robots that can save your life, things like that will be absolutely awesome in the future. I think that going forward, figuring out ways of utilizing solar energy and also gravitational dynamic energy, I think is going to be a big player in the future. You know, I mean, if we can create an object that lessens its own gravitational influence on the Earth, I mean, can you imagine how little energy it would take to move something like a car that could go from 1,000 kilos to, less than a pound because of a gravity switch? I mean, you talk about how little fuel it would take to move that in space compared to at 1,000 kilos. I mean, some of the stuff that's coming around right now is insane. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I love that a lot. I mean,
what would you say is the most reprehensible thing you ever done in the name of love?
When I wanted to get with this girl that worked at the Christopher School of Beauty, and she had a boyfriend, and he cheated on her, and I narked him off. I exposed her to a series of questions that she could ask her friend who knew that he was cheating on her. I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news because then I would bear the smell of like being a narc. And so I convinced her to ask her friend about a specific event, and her friend was incapable of lying to her, which I knew. And she found out through her, and then the next day I took her out, and we became boyfriend and girlfriend for a while. Yeah, but I felt bad about that. But I don't respect...
Really? But you just kind of manipulated a situation that maybe needed to be
I
uncovered,
mean,
no?
In the great realm of like broisms...
For your own benefit.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of come from a non-broisms, which are like more like law of the jungle, but like whitey, like regular social men that go to like college, like it's like a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. There's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing. I never have been like much bought into that. It's survival of the fittest, but also there is some kind of like decorum. And I did feel bad about that though, because
For how long?
Months.
How long were you with that girl?
Years.
Okay, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
years.
No, it was a good trade-off.
It was worth it in the long run. Also, just the
Did you treat
sex was so good.
Did you treat her right?
I always treat all my girls right. My mom told me what to do: wash my hands, never say bad things about them. Any girl, keep short fingernails. Clean, short. I mean, my mom was right about everything she told me about girls. She was 100%. You know,
And what else did she tell you?
Well, I mean, if they're your friends and they're going to give their body, the most important thing to them in their whole life, they're going to give their sex to you. You know, don't go around talking about them. Don't kiss and tell. Don't badmouth them. Don't say things that are, you know, derogatory about them, or talk amongst your friends about the privateness of your relationship with them. You know, I mean, it shocked me the first time I was with like some of my friends in California, and they were like, "Oh, she's stinky," or "She's this," or said something. They go like, "Dude, what the hell? You've been with this girl for a long time, and you're friends." And I mean, it's coming down to you like talking about like her hygiene. I mean, to me that was
which
just
is normally just some silly thing that people say
extremely
anyways.
low, though. I mean, to me that's
It's
like,
kind of a myth anyways. I mean, it's just
Well,
like people say that.
I was shocked by that. I thought it was very, very low class. I mean, I would never badmouth somebody who I'd been intimate with. It just seemed like, wow, that's cold, bro. But there's a lot of guys that I learned exist in this world that are truly assholes. They're carnivores. They're just consumers. They just go out there. You know, I remember when I was working with Tom Sachs, this guy we met that worked next door to us. He was like, "Yeah, look, this is the way you do it, bro. You go out, you walk down the street, you ask 20 girls, give me a number, and you get 2 numbers out of 20 girls, guaranteed. And this is what you do: you call the first one, the one that's most desperate, the ugliest one, you know." And it started this whole like theory, the guy for hooking chicks, you know. And I was like, "Holy mackerel, you're like a predator. You're a horrible predator."
It did sound like a predator.
But he's okay with it. And people ask him like his opinion about how to find girls. I was like, oh my God, I never knew that actually existed. I was always surrounded by everybody in my family, and the people around us, the San Onofre crew that was with us, were all very monogamistic, one-on-one kind of monogamous. Though I never, my entire life, nor I've seen my father or mother ever do anything but embrace our homosexual friends. They loved homosexual friends. We had many male and female homosexual friends, especially female, because a lot of surfer girls were gay. The great Joyce Hoffman had to live in the closet while she was world champion, because nobody would have accepted her as a gay surfer. You know, even though her dad was a champion hero of surfing, you know, she could only be a champion hero of surfing if she kept her love life in the closet.
There aren't many, I guess,
gay
out of the
surfers.
closet. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some skateboarders now, though.
Surfers are
out.
a little homophobic, I think, in general. I think that, but
I think most of the world is still actually. We just live in a cosmopolitan area, so we just assume everybody else.
I don't know. I live in Paris in the second arrondissement, so I see, you know, it's very melange, very mixed up. And
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is that
I
we
feel safe
take
when I
it for
see gay
granted, but I
people.
think that
if I see 2 gay guys holding hands, I feel safe. I'm like, wow, if they can do that and feel comfortable, you know, then we must be in a good place, you know.
that's what I'm saying. We're living in a place that's much more evolved.
Yeah.
So I think the majority of the world is still
But
behind the times.
despite that, I don't favor the philanderer. I don't like people that are
Serial monogamist.
not serial honesty.
Okay.
You can have. I mean, there are people that
You can
live
have paramours
honest-
if you
param-
are
Yeah, I know. My brother Adam is polyamorous. My brother Adam is polyamorous. He's a pluralist. He's had, at one point, he had 4 wives. 4 wives living with him. And I was like, how do you do it? And he goes, well,
Were they in Utah?
No. And they just lived together in Florida. And he had, and they were all okay with sharing one man. I don't know how he did it, but I mean, he was happy. So, I mean, whatever. Yeah, to each his own.
That said, overall you like it here, but is there something that really you have like a petit bête noire is like a pet peeve about the French or their culture? That's something that culturally chafes you here?
No, it's not much that culturally chafes me here. There is a certain gross indignation that anybody can step up to the soapbox and just kind of lay you out for doing something that they think is wrong, like this kind of social Karenism, to be like a Karen about something.
Here, really?
Yeah, and that can happen at any given moment. Like, for instance, now that the now that there's so much activity with bike lanes, I've seen some major feuds with bike lanes. For instance, the bike lane, the light changes. There's a heavy current of bikes going back and forth. Ooh, there's a lot of bikes going. The light changes for the pedestrian green. And even though the bikes are going like crazy, like gangbusters, the second that light turns green, he steps right off the curb directly into the line of the bikes. Because he can. It's his turn to go. And then there's a big fight ensues and this and that. And it's, the guy's like, what are you talking about? The light turned green, I walked, And I agree with that, but also it's troublesome because he could have been just a little bit less of a bungholio and it would have worked out. But instead he had to go to the mats over it. But let me be frank about it. In all my years living in America and working my way up the ladder of the action sports industry to the point of being CEO or president of a multi-million-dollar company, I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars into the corporate system, be it medical, Social Security, all the taxes that I paid, state, local, federal. In 1 or 2 years after acquiring my residency here, the French system took better care of me than 50 years of contributing to the United States system. My carte vitale, my medical card, my residency card, the mutuelle that I signed up for, the dentists, the doctors, the system.
The DMO, the HMO, that's
everything. French complain about their system a little bit, but it's light years ahead of the United States. And what's sad is I don't see the American system changing much, but there's a triangle of death in America. And it's medical on one corner, the real doctors and all that. It's the hospitals and the big insurance brackets on one side. And then there's the pharmacies and the drug producers and the FDA on the other side. So it's a triangle. And the thing that set that all off is what Nixon set up, and that's insurance, medical insurance. And, people will pay millions into medical insurance, and it's for naught because their deductible's so big for the thing that when they got hurt, they can't even afford their own insurance because that's not the way insurance works. It's a scam on a scam in a scam. Americans have been completely misled when it comes to what they've been paying for and what they should be doing. I mean, the current government's talking about canceling Social Security. Can you imagine that? People have paid tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars into Social Security, and now they're just turning 62, and they want to get something out of all that money, and the government just says, you know what? We're just going to stop
Well,
that.
they would have to do it over time, right?
Well, not the
You
way
can't just-
that who wants to do it. But I'm just saying that whole system, that whole American system based on capitalism to a fault has kind of hurt them because the curse word of capitalism is socialism. Yet America needs a modicum of socialism to survive.
Well, you say that, but it's funny because a lot of people in America do actually benefit from a national health service.
Duh.
I mean, the military,
Yeah,
firemen,
for sure.
policemen,
For sure.
and who pays for it? We do. So why not
Right.
extend that out to everybody else? Is what I don't understand.
Why wouldn't there just be a bigger, better system? That's all.
That's it. What do you appreciate most about living abroad or living in France?
Well, I mean, the quality of life,
Yeah.
the food, the having be able to get on a train and go somewhere instead of having to take a bus or a plane. Trains are amazing. We don't have no train system in the United States.
We do, but it's more expensive
It's
than flying.
horrible. It's horrible. The trains suck in America.
But it's more expensive.
Here, there's trains everywhere. There's trains up and down, and also, I love cycling around a city and not feeling like I'm going to get run over and killed. Even though people get run over and killed, I mean, in America, except for New York, there's no place where I would go and jump on a bicycle and feel like I could get from point A to point B. Here, you could ride from Toulouse to Biarritz, and it's like people do it. They do it for vacation. They do it, so the connectivity of the different nuances of the Schengen with all the countries together here is amazing. It's amazing, and it's exploratory bliss. Going, getting on a train in Paris and getting off in Amsterdam, or taking a riverboat from Den Haag into Germany. It's just complicated and beautiful and old and complicated and unreal. Where, like in California, the oldest thing you see is 200 years old. If it's not Native American. It's the oldest thing you see is 200
The old
years
mission
old.
down in San Juan Capistrano?
Yeah, Padre Junipero Serra, who went and killed all the Native Americans. Thanks, Junipero. Thanks a lot. Here you have totally the opposite of that. You have rich tapestry of history and food and culture. And all you have to do is go to the caverns, go to the caves and look down into the belly of Paris. It's an amazing city, And there's so many amazing cities, Sofia and this and that. And
Could you see yourself living anywhere else abroad in Europe?
I like Amsterdam, but it's too far away from surf. I love the bike culture there, and I love the people there. I love Berlin, but it's too big and laid out, Kreuzberg and some of the hipster areas of Berlin are amazing, and I love them. I love Madrid. I love Barcelona, but Madrid gets too hot in the summer, and Barcelona is a little too Spanish for me. Maybe San Sebastian on the frontier of.
Barcelona's pretty.
I like Barcelona.
Catalunya.
I like Porto. And I like Erosera. I like. I'm not a big Lisbon fan, except for the old area of Lisbon.
Porto, I really like. That's true.
Porto's awesome. Again, Europe is extremely diverse. There's so much here that you can see, and so many different things about people and culture and art. Oh my God, the art here is insane. Go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam and blow your mind, or the Picasso Museum on Place de Thornier here. It's amazing. It's amazing. Americans have a couple good museums, but most culture in California is yogurt,
Well, I don't think that their museums and cultural events are cherished as much because America is a young culture, and therefore you go to a football game or you go to a basketball game, and that is the culture. Or in California, it's surfing and skating, but it's just different.
Yeah.
One last question, and this is a fun one. If you could spend the night or an evening, have dinner, or if you'd like to be intimate and romantic with this person, out of anybody living or dead in France, or French, who would that be?
I wish I could, and I met him once, but I wish I could just spend a night, a day, a dinner, hanging out and talking like old school with Johnny Hallyday. I'd just spend a whole day with him talking, and and maybe a nice dinner and drinks, smoke some weed with him, just really hang out with him and hear his story and the things he's done. He lived such an incredible life. He was the Elvis Presley of France. He was so, it's either something like that that's relative, that's close to me, that I've almost touched before. Because Sebastian, our friend, he was his producer. I met him at the Fête de Musique in Biarritz for a second. He looked like Elvis Presley, a French Elvis Presley. He was amazing with his Harley Davidson and stuff. He was, what a character. It would either be that or something really like creepy history-ish, like sitting down with Napoleon or Marquis de Sade. I think talking to the Marquis de Sade would be a very interesting conversation. Even though I hate him because he was so fucking evil, he truly was a sadist. Hence his name. Can you imagine? He was so evil that the word for evil is his name.
That's great.
It's like a Eddie Murphy line, If every day was a sunny day, what would a sunny day be? Even the Bible says necessary evil. What is necessary evil? It's saying evil is necessary. Have you ever seen that? Vampire in Brooklyn?
No.
It's a great, great, great series of like meaningful, weird colloquialisms mixed in a comedy. But I think meeting somebody that was
like a later Eddie Murphy film, like in the late
really
90s or something.
It's when he was still good. But obviously sitting with Napoleon and talking about like what stupid things, little idiosyncratic things. Like, well, tell me about your day. Do you brush your teeth? What does your underwear look like? What would you like to eat? What do you think is good to eat? What's a snack? What would a snack be? Is it a dried deer leg? Or is it something somebody made for him, I mean, I think that would be very interesting. But, I think Johnny Holiday would be funner. I would like to take him surfing. I'd like to teach Johnny Holiday to surf. Take him on a tandem on a surfboard. I think that would be so fun. I'd love.
Do you listen to his music?
I'm not a huge fan of his music. I'm a fan of his personality. I like some of his songs, but I mean, I think his personality, I think what he brought to entertainment, what he brought to just kind of that national unity, like the way Serge got everybody, kind of so pumped up on his thing. You ever see the clip of Serge when he meets Whitney Houston for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
And he says, no, I didn't say I think you're good. I said I want to fuck you.
Yeah. And there's Drucker is trying to be like, no, he didn't. That's not what that means. Yeah.
See, that's the greatest of. To me, that's classic French. Just macho, funny. Cool.
You know, Jimi Hendrix actually opened up on tour for Holiday for quite some time. Yeah, when he left the States because he wasn't getting any real love over there.
No way.
And he came to England. Yeah. He got on the.
That's so crazy. Johnny Holiday was a superstar.
With him, and that's how Johnny Holiday ended up singing "Hey Joe."
No way.
Yeah, he took the song.
See, I never knew that. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and on that note, listen, Jonathan, I really want to thank you for coming in. I know it's been a long time in planning.
No, it's cool. I like shooting the shit with you. It's a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best on your endeavors down in the South.
Thanks.
And I expect you to keep me abreast, and we'll put up your links at the end of this thing here.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Bon vent, mes camarades.